Chapter 749. Looking down at the motionless Enel below, Dustless also landed on the ground. He landed about 10 meters away from Enel. When he was about to finish off this kid, an ear-piercing roar swept through the air and drilled into his ears. Then he saw a dazzling silver flash on Enel's body. It's worthy of being called invincible fruit. Its attack power is strong enough to destroy the world, its speed is unparalleled, and its healing is unique. Such a comprehensive fruit is perfect. Dustless nodded in appreciation, and his heart was splashed with flames, and he coveted the rumble fruit a little more. Because Enel is thunder, he can adjust the ability of thunder to stimulate the whole body, commonly known as electrotherapy. Massaging his heart with electricity can make it beat again. In just the blink of an eye, Enel regained consciousness from fainting. How can a mere human predict my speed? He is not a god. How can he understand lightning? In addition, this guy can touch my body and he can hit me. Looking at Dustless warily, Enel thought about countermeasures. He is used to relying on the rumble fruit. This is the first time he has encountered such an unexpected situation. At present, in the elemental state, Dustless is the first person who can attack his strength. It's a world of difference from the strong enemies he has encountered in the past. When he was attacked just now, he had used the elemental state to avoid it, but he did not expect to be hit in the end. If it were not for the special reason of the rumble fruit, Enel would have been killed. Staring at his burnt body, Enel had a cold sweat on both sides of his temples. The kick made his internal organs stop working in an instant, and his life was in danger. If it weren't for the ability of electrotherapy, this game would have been a fiasco because of his carelessness, and he might have even lost his life. Eyes full of caution and vigilance, Enel hit the drum on his right shoulder, making a dull and sharp sound, and the violent lightning screamed manically. 30 million volt Thunderbird. A giant bird completely condensed by thunder and lightning was formed in an instant. Its wings stretched out and immediately flapped, and a fierce storm came out of the wings. When it blows on the human face, it will feel an unprecedented tingling, and the skin will sting like being pricked by needles. Hum hum hum, a loud and clear cry resounded between heaven and earth. It was as if a phoenix had spread its wings and soared into the sky. Its vivid and lifelike figure was elegant and noble, untouchable. This noble divine bird could only silently admire its figure. Then it bent down towards Dustless and opened its sharp beastly mouth, wanting to devour Dustless. You're just a mere beast. Do you think you can transform from a pheasant into a phoenix just by changing your appearance? Naive. Dustless looked fearlessly at the Thunderbird swooping down. A look of disdain appeared in his eyes as a large number of high-density photons condensed and compressed in his hand. The outline of a sharp golden sword was faintly taking shape. Heaven-gathering cloud sword. The moment the Thunderbird swallowed Dustless, the compressed lightsaber in his hand rapidly formed. Then he raised his hand and the sharp golden light easily pierced through the Thunderbird's body. Puchi. The ferocious Thunderbird let out a sorrowful cry as it was cut in half by Tian Songyun's sword. Bastard, although, Thunderbird, isn't a very strong move, it shouldn't be broken up like this. Enel's old face turned green, his eyes spitting fire. For the first time in his life he felt defeated and powerless. He had a feeling that he could not beat Dustless even if he tried his best. She had never realized that he was so fragile and not worth mentioning. Bang bang bang. In a fit of anger, Enel hammered the strangely shaped drum behind him, ignoring his weak body. Hum hum hum, a sharp beast cry once again sounded in the calm sky. A couple of giant birds that were completely condensed from lightning flapped their wings and flew high into the sky. They flapped their wings excitedly and immediately turned into a storm as they rushed toward Dustless. It's not that simple. With a sneer, Enel continued to beat the drum behind him. Immediately, several ferocious wolves condensed in an instant and rushed toward Dustless side by side. The joint attack of land and air blocked Dustless's retreat. Especially the beasts condensed from lightning on the ground, they came from all directions, not giving Dustless a chance to escape. Insignificant skill. With a cold look, Dustless condensed a large number of dense photons in his hand. The shining light was as dazzling as the sun. Yasukani no Magatama. Countless light bullets shot out from the palm of his hand, and the sky was dyed golden. The concentrated attack destroyed everything in its path. The lightning birds in the sky and the lightning beasts running on the ground were all killed by 1,000 cuts and cut into pieces. They were no longer as powerful as before. They fell to the ground like dead dogs and gradually dissipated. Enel's face twitched violently, and he was about to curse when Dustless's ghostly voice sounded in his ears. He suddenly turned his head and saw Dustless with a cold expression. And the golden light sword that followed. Pucci. Enel's handsome face suddenly had a hideous scorched scar. This was the result of Enel's quick retreat. If he reacted a little slower, his head might have been separated from his body. Touching the wound on his face in horror, Enel's eyes were filled with a rare fear. He had been opening the heart net, observation hockey, but he didn't perceive Dustless's attack. Like a ghost suddenly appearing beside him, he couldn't detect it. Chapter 750. His cold eyes were full of chill and hostility. Only by killing Enel, a new rumble fruit will be born. It is unwise to take him, a person who has been arrogant for a long time, for his own use. To say the least, at this moment, Enel really chooses to lower his proud head, but it is also a temporary surrender. Once there is a chance, he will slip away and even find a suitable opportunity to attack Dustless. In this case, it is better to kill him directly. Anyway, there is someone more suitable for rumble fruit than him, so Dustless will naturally not be merciful. Trembling and touching the scorched scars on his face, Enel was like a wolf and a tiger, and his whole eyes turned blood red because of excessive anger. Enel was very arrogant and he was injured by a mere human being. His self-esteem was seriously challenged, and the thunder and lightning behind him crackled, revealing the power of destruction. But in Dustless's eyes, this is also a way to hide the fear in disguise. 60 million volts Thunder Dragon. The silver Thunder Dragon, completely compressed and condensed by high-density thunder and lightning, roared in the sky, and the horrifying thunder roared, the dragon roared, and the slender and straight body swayed. Its eyes were sharp, and the burning thunder was jumping, and it immediately spread its wings like a viper. Oh 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 oh! The endless dragon roar resounded through the sky, and the deafening roar was deep in the soul. It was like encountering a natural enemy which made people bow their heads. The majestic dragon head was particularly domineering, and they did not dare to look at it. Do you really think you are a real dragon after learning a few dragon roars? Staring at the silver dragon, Dustless's eyes flashed with disdain. His small feet attracted a large number of photons like a black hole, compressed into high-density light, like liquid gold, covering Dustless's legs with infinite power. Light-speed kick. As Dustless's voice fell, the light covering his feet shot out in a straight line of sight, cutting through the thorns and setting off a violent explosion at the moment of contact with the Thunder Dragon. In the blink of an eye, the mighty Thunder Dragon was annihilated. That's 60 million volts, so it's not worth mentioning. With a stunned face, Enel looked incredulously at the silver Thunder Dragon, and swallowed his saliva inconceivably. It was the first time that his trick was so easily broken. What are you surprised about? Looking at the dull face of Enel, Dustless's voice was as light as flowing water. Your fruit is very powerful, second to none in Logia, but unfortunately you are still too far away. Judging a person's strength is based on comprehensive strength, not just the ability of the devil fruit, and... Staring at Enel, Dustless went straight to the point. You have a flaw in your character. The power of rumble fruit is infinitely reduced. If it were someone else, they would definitely be able to perfectly interpret its power. The ability of any devil fruit varied from person to person, and no one was strong or weak. Just like Luffy's rubber fruit, it could only be regarded as an ordinary type. Back then, Dustless looked down on the rubber fruit and casually threw it to red-haired Shanks, but that kid could take a shortcut and use the rubber fruit to the extreme, which made people look at him in a new light. All in all, the host itself is incompetent, and the role it plays in the powerful fruit is minimal. You mean I'm too bad? Enel asked with a pale face. Gritting his teeth and glaring at Dustless, his crimson eyes were about to burst out of his eye sockets, and his expression was ferocious like a devil. With the high-density lightning flashing behind him, it was quite oppressive, giving people a feeling of falling into an ice cave. This is a fact. Glancing at Enel, Dustless nodded. The development of the fruit is entirely the host itself. It is not difficult to see that Enel has obviously not reached the point of awakening the fruit. Otherwise, his strength will inevitably be greatly improved. From the current quasi-general level, he will break through to the level of general or even higher. Don't give me an inch, human, you forced me to do this. Enel roared, his voice was a little sharp, and it was obvious that he had gone berserk. Ka. The white-silver light enveloped the sky, the flash of destruction destroyed the world, and the irregular lightning was about to destroy the world. There was a difference between this and the power of 60 million volts just now. 200 million volts Thor. The irregular lightning condensed and closed, covering Enel's body. His body swelled, and the violent lightning gradually formed a behemoth with a human face. His eyes were like torches, emitting a threatening cold air. His imposing manner could be said to be invincible. His huge body covered the sky and covered the earth. His thick and solid arms contained boundless strength, as vast and boundless as the ocean. With a flick of his finger, the sun and moon lost their light. "It looks quite big, it looks good as for the power, hee." Looking curiously at Enel, who was wrapped in thunder and lightning, Dustless couldn't help but nod secretly. This thunder god state, not to mention the power, at least it was very scary. It was like a god who controlled thunder and lightning, and the thunder and lightning of the whole world were controlled by him. This is somewhat similar to Kinsusinu. Staring at the lightning all over Enel's body, Dustless couldn't help but think of Kinsusinu, attack and defense in one. The principle is similar. I hope you can still be so calm later. Enel, whose body was filled with lightning, said gloomily. Looking up, Dustless was calm, and his pale face was always calm, leisurely and comfortable. Chapter 751. Looking up, Enel's body was covered in high-density lightning, crackling loudly. His whole body was like a magnetic field. His body, including the lightning in the natural world, was devoured by him. He was so hungry that his body was growing stronger. The momentum of his whole body rose sharply, full of the power to destroy the world. How can this kind of trick work? Maybe you are the overlord of this unknown sky island. Once you leave this island and enter the new world where the strong gather, sooner or later you will be eliminated by others. His body overflowed with a golden luster. Coincidentally, it was quite similar to Enel. The only difference was that this sacred golden light gave people the first impression of evil. Sharp tongue. Enel, who was full of confidence, sneered disdainfully. At the same time, he stared at the luster of Dustless in surprise. He didn't know why, but he felt a sense of danger as if it came out of thin air. Enel didn't know why, maybe it was just pure intuition. It seems that these days are getting more and more tired. Kill this guy and go rest. Enel dispelled the panic and discomfort, and took it for granted that it was an illusion caused by overexhaustion. He was a god, how could he be afraid in the face of a weak human body? The thick arm, completely condensed by lightning, suddenly raised, the palm opened and aimed in the direction of Dustless. High-density lightning condensed in the palm of his hand and turned into a thick beam of light. Immediately, it was like a rainbow breaking through the sun. The exaggerated speed was simply too fast to react. The huge beam of light shot out and swallowed Dustless in an instant. Whoosh! The power of the eruption of the silver beam was amazing, and the sky was divided into two. It was unstoppable, and it could be clearly seen that Dustless, who had been floating in the sky, was hit head-on. Ah! This time I will definitely die. Enel laughed wildly, his arrogant face twisted. Definitely die? Not waiting for Enel to be proud for long, a low voice full of sneer resounded through the sky. The voice was very low, but because of the characteristics of lightning, it still entered Enel's ears at a glance. The proud smile immediately froze, motionless like a sculpture, and the whole person was directly petrified. Within the thick silver beam of light, Dustless, who had endured the lightning strikes, was safe and sound. His entire body was protected by the golden skeleton, protecting him like an iron bucket. As time passed, more and more evil golden light floated out of Dustless's body, becoming denser and denser, showing signs of growing larger. Was it an illusion? Rubbing his eyes, Enel thought that he was seeing things because of his old age. Just now, an exaggerated giant with a height of hundreds of meters appeared in his eyes. As expected, he's just trying to keep up appearances. He observed Yen again. His body was still covered by a sturdy skeleton and nothing else. Looks like I've underestimated you. This time you'll die for me. His eyes shot out the cold light of the forest, and Enel's killing intent was awe-inspiring. Dustless had provoked him time and time again, and his hatred was second only to that of Straw Hat Luffy. A silver pillar of light fell from the sky and aimed at Dustless. Soon after, the space shook violently. God's punishment. Tens of millions of volts, and even more deadly lightning fell from the sky, and the beam of light that enveloped Dustless burst, and the aftermath of the eruption was enough to flatten the mountain. A double blow. Enel had hoped to break down Dustless's defense, but what happened next made him stare blankly. The strange golden skeleton not only did not melt and dismember, but it grew dozens of times larger as if it had taken hormones, and a golden giant suddenly appeared in the quiet void. Bastard, what the hell is this? It's even bigger than my thunder god. Enel's throat kept swallowing and his mind was blank. The giant that condensed on Dustless's body was filled with a wild and ancient temperament, as if it was a god of war from ancient times. You, a guy who claims to be a god, has surprisingly small vision. Dustless floated quietly in the sky, holding his hands in front of him, shaking his head and looking at Kinsusanoo, and explained, "This is a unique ninjutsu that can only be opened by Manjikyu Sharingan, Kinsusanoo. This is only the mature version. But no matter what, you're still a god. In order to show you my respect, I'll let you see his evolved version of the ultimate form. Even in hell, you'll be able to close your eyes in peace. I really can't help it. Sometimes I'm just so kind." Sigh. As his voice fell, the chakra that stopped erupting surged again. Dustless looked cold and his hand clenched into a fist. Kinsusanoo condense. Dustless's infinite chakra burst out with full force, and all of it was absorbed by the mature Kinsusanoo. His body rapidly expanded, and a heavy armor was formed in an instant, and with the ferocious Tengu armor, his terrifying body was inserted into the clouds. All of this happened in just the blink of an eye. The simple, decaying giant with 4 arms and 2 heads, with 2 golden light tachi on his waist, the dark clouds covering the sky instantly turned golden. Everything ends here. Kinsusanoo moved with the momentum and the light tachi was taken out of the scabbard. Glancing at Enel, who seemed to have his soul taken away, Dustless was expressionless. It's not his fault. Kinsusanoo is really exaggerated, especially his Kinsusanoo, which is close to 200 meters, is even more shocking. With a thought, the light tachi in the hand of Kinsusanoo fell mercilessly. Whoosh! The terrifying slash that could easily cut an island apart instantly destroyed the lightning all over Enel's body. Chapter 752. The power of Susanoo was beyond imagination. Its terrifying height was infinitely close to 200 meters, enough to make anyone despair. The power of its thick arms was even more shocking. It didn't move, but when it moved, the sky fell and the earth cracked. Just by relying on the wind of its blade, it can reach the power to destroy the world. Whoosh! The blast from the tip of Kinsusanoo perfect form easily penetrated Enel's body, but it did not resist the shocking and oppressive wind of the blade. It continued to dive towards the sky island on the ground. Boom! At the moment when the wind of the blade hit the island, it jumped violently as if it was jumping on a bed, easily cutting through the ground. The fierce wind of the blade ferociously swept deep into the ground, tearing a crack up to several kilometers long and even higher. Even the unstable giant mountain was torn apart and turned into dust by the strong shock. In history, this is the first time that the Sky Island has been attacked so horribly. The soil around the island fell off wildly, and the whole Sky Island was constantly tilting. The dead Sky Island was throbbing, and many dormant volcanoes were also erupting on a large scale due to the shock, accelerating the collapse of the island. Looking down from the sky, the whole island has been flattened in half. Ah! Dustless in the sky looked at the sinking island with a headache, and his brows couldn't help but frown. It was enough to suppress the power of Kinsusanoo perfect form. I didn't expect it to make such a big move in the end. The whole Sky Island was shaking from side to side, as if it would sink at any time and fall from the sky. Such a masterpiece is naturally attributed to Kinsusanoo perfect form. This technique has exceeded human cognition, and it can't be defined by the word technique. In particular, Dustless's Kinsusanoo perfect form is definitely the strongest in the history of the Uchiha clan. Even Uchiha Madara has not reached the level of Dustless. With a height of nearly 200 meters, Dustless is the only one in the history of the Uchiha clan. Kinsusanoo perfect form is removed. This behemoth is suitable for large-scale combat, and its movement is extremely slow, and it is not suitable for agile combat. Puchi. At this moment, a dazzling flash suddenly splashed in the void, followed by a roar of thunder, and the sharp object in his hand easily penetrated Dustless's chest. Ha! Seeing that it was easy to succeed, the arrogant laughter resounded through the earth. Enel was like a madman, spitting out all the grievances he had suffered for a long time, and for a moment he even danced. Looking at it, Dustless's heart has been pierced, and because of the attribute of rumble fruit, the electric current destroyed Dustless's body. His 5 viscera and 6 bowels were severely damaged in an instant. Even if the immortals were alive, Wu Qin would also be powerless to reverse the situation. This is the price of looking down on me, damn human! Enel roared full of joy. Thinking of Dustless's exaggerated attack of Kinsusanoo, his hair stood on end, and the cold sweat on his forehead fell like rain. If he didn't react in time and use the observation haki to predict the trajectory of Dustless's attack and escape in advance, I'm afraid that he would have been cut into pieces. After all, the Sky Island was casually flattened, let alone him. To be able to force this god to this point, you should be proud of yourself. You deserve to brag about it when you go to hell. Enel said. You seem to be in a good mood, you look very happy. Regardless of the injuries all over his body, Dustless said with all his strength. The weak and haggard voice had a hint of mockery, but Enel was too excited for a moment and did not understand the other meaning. Perhaps even if Enel kept his mind clear at the moment, he may not be able to listen to it. After becoming a god for decades, he has been used to being a tyrant and arrogant. Nonsense, this is the honor that the winner should have. Enel said indifferently. Hearing this, Dustless's mouth curled into a strange smile. Since you are done being happy, then you can go to hell. Boom. Dustless's severely injured body floated out white smoke and immediately turned into a piece of wood. Are you kidding me? Bastard, how is this possible? Enel looked at the scene in front of him in horror and was dumbfounded for a while. The thoughts in his mind stopped and he stared at the strange scene in front of him that should have happened in a fairy tale world. Suddenly he felt a pain in his body and it was burning as if his whole body was going to melt. He subconsciously looked at the position of his chest. It turned out that his heart had been pierced by a golden sword. How is it, this way of dying is exactly the same as me just now? I feel that it suits you. Because of the characteristics of light, Enel's internal organs were instantly burned, and his body fell to the ground uncontrollably. His breath was so weak that it was negligible. There was no possibility of survival. Staring at Dustless's cold face, Enel's face was full of unwillingness. He wanted to fight again, but his strength was drained and he had no energy to fight again. He could only wait silently for the arrival of death. Look at how pitiful you are, I just wanted you to die happy, but it seems that it has the opposite effect. Dustless looked down at Enel, who was lying on the ground with murderous intent, with an apologetic expression on his face. Dustless didn't say it, but it was even worse in Enel's ears. His throat was coughing more violently, and scarlet blood kept pouring out of his mouth. Date. Chapter 753. All human beings are extremely afraid of death, and no human being can treat life as air. Humans are no exception, and Enel, who claims to be a god, is no exception. Pa pa pa, a dazzling light flashed all over his body. Enel used electrotherapy to stimulate his body, trying to revive the body organs destroyed by Dustless. He wanted to fight Dustless again. However, the ideal is often beautiful, but the reality is the opposite and cruel. No matter how Enel stimulated the charred organs, he could not get them to work again. They were charred lifelessly and showed no sign of beating again. His rotten and smelly lungs were obviously completely necrotic. No, this god can't die in this nameless place. The vast starry sky is my journey. Enel gritted his teeth and his eyes glowed with a strong desire for survival. At the same time, he struggled to support his body and tried to stand up again. This god? How long are you going to use this funny name like a kid who hasn't grown up? Dustless couldn't help but shake his head, looking at Enel, who seemed to be trapped in his god's dream, and his heart was full of pity. This kid was poisoned, and it was his arrogant strength that harmed him. You seem to be a little narrow-minded. Indifferently and ruthlessly stepping Enel back to the ground, Dustless's frozen face loosened. Since you are about to go to hell, I might as well teach you a lesson. Dustless said abruptly, giving people an inexplicable feeling. I am sorry for ruthlessly destroying the god's dream that you have painstakingly woven. Dustless found trouble with Enel because he was a rumble fruit user. Only by completely killing him, a new rumble fruit will be born in some corner of the world. For White Zetsu, who has clones all over the world, finding it is only a matter of time. But in order to express my apology, lest you are still confused in hell and pursue the so-called path of God, I will kindly tell you what a real god is. Don't thank me, as I said before, I am sometimes very kind. Dustless's tone was magnanimous, and his hand indicated that Enel did not need to thank him. Pucci. Enel, who was already furious, stared blankly at Dustless. A large amount of blood immediately gushed out of his mouth, and purple-black blood flowed out of his scorched chest. He glared at Dustless with fire in his eyes, wishing he could drag this bastard to hell with him. Enel had never seen such a shameless person who knew how to make insinuations. You are not a god. How could you know the joys of being a god? Enel retorted. You're right. Dustless nodded in agreement. Even though his strength had reached a level where he was on par with the gods, he did not consider himself a god. But my wife is a god. Wu Qin suddenly changed the topic and said with a smile of exultation. His calm tone was filled with pride and satisfaction. The god he was referring to was Huiji. Although she had only been snatched by force, it was a fact that Huiji was sincere and had even given birth to a daughter for Wuxian. Time was the best elixir. The so-called god will never care about the gain or loss of an island, and will not be like you, having an idiotic dream of conquering the world. That is a journey that only the little demons fantasize about. Wuxian attacked mercilessly. Like Huiji, the whole world was just a chess piece. Everything in the world was just nourishment for her to become stronger. If she destroyed a world, she could create a more perfect one at any time. She was simply indifferent to life. Enel opened his mouth intending to refute, but he was speechless. There was a feeling of clearing the clouds and seeing the blue sky. The fact was, as Dustless said, a god who really looked down on all living things would not care about the gain or loss of an island. If he broke it, he could just create another one. His face was as pale as paper. Thinking that the great dreams of the past were just self-paralyzing, Enel felt despair. Do you think I will sympathize with you with this pitiful expression? Don't be naive. Enjoy your next time. Use the whole island as a cemetery for you. No one has enjoyed this luxurious funeral so far. His eyes spread out and saw that only half of the huge sky island was left. Dustless made a seal with both hands, and Kansusanu, who was silent in his body, emerged again and made the same seal with Dustless. Celestial tremor star, half a day passed in a flash, and the entire sky island, including Enel, was completely erased by Dustless. As soon as he set foot in Mariehua, Hancock hurriedly rushed over. As for White Zetsu, he had been sent out by Dustless to find the traces of Rumble Rumble fruit. It was impossible to let the brand new Rumble Rumble fruit fall into the hands of others. Master, the guy you hate the most, by the order of Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, seems to have arrived at Mariehua an hour ago, and several of his subordinates are injured all over. They are only one step away from ascending to heaven. Wuxian was speechless as he looked at Hancock. She was only one step away from ascending to heaven. He had never taught Hancock such a thing. The guy I hate the most, it seems that there is no such person. People who are hated by me only have a dead end. Dustless was puzzled. He wanted to break his head, but he didn't remember that there were enemies in this world. There were many people who hated him. Chapter 754. Hancock pouted with a little dissatisfaction, and wrinkles appeared on her perfect face, with a little grievance, adding a pitiful look to her. Her whole body was like a deadly poison, and every part of her body was filled with the desire to commit a crime. What a goblin. After a while, Dustless, who recovered from his daze, sighed. She doesn't need heavy makeup to dress up, just ordinary casual makeup and bare face, but she has a different kind of interest. This kind of invisible natural beauty is far more fascinating than carefully dressed up. My enemy? After thinking about it again, Dustless didn't guess it in his mind. Generally speaking, people who may threaten him, Dustless will kill them in advance. There are only a few people in the world who can threaten him. It's him. Hancock said seriously, pointing to several figures that suddenly flashed in the distance. Dustless was stunned and immediately raised his eyes subconsciously and swept straight over. Dustless was indeed quite familiar with several people who entered his sight. After taking a closer look, he recognized the origins of several people, especially the ugly man in the middle. Dustless clearly recognized him. Doesn't young master often talk about him? That guy is Blackbeard. Blinking her beautiful eyes, Hancock said seriously. In the past, he often heard Dustless talk about Blackbeard, and Blackbeard was a big pirate who recently defected from the Whitebeard pirates. Dustless is indeed a marine, and it is not an exaggeration to say that the two are life and death enemies. My enemy? Do you mean Blackbeard? Dustless disdainfully curled his lips, and his face was full of contempt. In the future, Blackbeard will take Whitebeard's tremor fruit, Gura Gura no Mi. Dustless may reluctantly look at him, but now he is just a street rat, a fugitive that everyone wants to kill. At this moment, Blackbeard was wrapped in bandages and so were his crew, and they were all obviously seriously injured. Let's go and see. With a disdainful expression, Dustless then walked towards Blackbeard, and a teasing look flashed in his eyes. If he didn't guess wrong, Blackbeard came all the way to Mariehua to apply for 7 Warlords of the Sea, because of Whitebeard. According to the current situation, Blackbeard has not yet become a Shichibukai. It is estimated that he has been rejected by the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. After all, Blackbeard's name also has a dazzling D character, and the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, need to consider it carefully. At this moment, Blackbeard's face was gloomy, his barrel-like stomach was trembling from time to time, and his face was sullen. If it weren't for the fact that this place was the world government's headquarters, he would have already gone berserk and destroyed this place. A few days ago, Sengoku also promised Blackbeard to become a Shichibukai, but he didn't expect him to change his mind today. Blackbeard's anger can be imagined. Thinking about it, Blackbeard's heart chilled. Once Sengoku refuses to become a Shichibukai, it means that from now on he will have to live the life of a fugitive wandering the sea. Not only will he have to face Marines, but he will also have to prevent the revenge of the Whitebeard pirates. The future is dark. The insidious Sengoku is going to kill him. Chapter 755. If he could, Blackbeard would like to tear Sengoku into pieces. It was because of him that Blackbeard decided to attack Whitebeard. As a result, Blackbeard changed his face and went back on his words. The anger in Blackbeard's heart was enough to burn the whole sky. Abandoned by Marine and offended Whitebeard, the overlord of the sea, his future is destined to be an enemy of the whole world. Idiot, you deserve to be used by Sengoku. His face loosened and a touch of contempt and disdain swept across his face. Blackbeard and his crew were all dressed in a sorry state. Their spirits were dispirited, and their faces were as pale as paper, as if they had not recovered from a serious illness. Even if they were wrapped in bandages, it was not difficult to see from the bandages that covered almost all of their bodies that they were half a step away from the gates of hell. This is the result of blindly challenging Whitebeard. Even if the ruthless years deprive Whitebeard of his peak strength, the remaining strength is enough to easily destroy the world. Well, I hope you fulfill your promise, otherwise, what are you going to do? He turned his head and looked at Blackbeard with playful eyes. Do you think you still have a way out? Don't dream, there is no such thing as a medicine for regret in the world. Dustless mercilessly hit Blackbeard. This guy is obviously a dead duck. He has now offended the Whitebeard pirates. If he parted ways with Marine at this moment, he would eventually die. Hey. With a cruel luster in his eyes, Blackbeard's eyes flashed with cunning and he said proudly, do you think I will come to Mariewa like an idiot without enough preparation? Blackbeard retorted sarcastically, his tone full of confidence. This guy. I underestimated him. Dustless frowned slightly. Blackbeard looks like a hothead. In fact, he is as cunning as a mouse. He is wary of Marine in advance, and it is understandable that he has other means. Blackbeard is a very careful person. The one who should have a headache should be Sengoku. It's none of my business. You can complain to Sengoku Tich. Shaking his head, Dustless was too lazy to think about it. This kind of thing is a headache for Sengoku. It has nothing to do with him. In the end, he is just an honorary admiral. In short, Dustless didn't need to meddle in other people's business. Blackbeard heard this and suddenly collapsed. In his heart, there was an army of 100,000 grass mud horses galloping. This guy, as an admiral of the Marine, doesn't seem to care about the future of the Marine. Compared to the other three generals, he was completely focused on himself. At least have some professional ethics. You are an admiral of the Marine. Blackbeard scolded in his heart and couldn't help but feel sympathy for Sengoku. Dustless in front of him is different from other Marines, and there is an essential gap between him and those admirals who talk about justice all day long. If you refuse me, you won't have a good time. Blackbeard roared ferociously, his tone filled with hysterical madness. You're just a mere pirate. Don't forget where you are right now. This is not a place for you to behave atrociously. If not for the fact that you still have a use for me, I would have sent you to hell right now. At this moment, a hoarse and iron-blooded voice came. Looking up, it was Sakasuji in a red suit, and his eyes under the brim of his hat were full of killing intent. How did Sakasuji appear in Mariewa? Looking at Akainu, Dustless's eyes were filled with doubts and puzzlement. A Marine admiral suddenly appeared in Mariewa. Obviously something unexpected had happened. Don't forget, you are not Shichibukai yet, I can arrest you at any time. Unlike the calm and tranquil Dustless, Akainu looked cold and murderous. He had a deep hatred for pirates. He had always advocated cutting the weeds and eliminating the roots. It was a fool's dream to expect these guys to repent. Hey. Hearing this, Blackbeard's rough face raised a fearless smile and looked at Akainu's murderous eyes. Don't think that I am a little brat who doesn't understand the world. If you want to kill me, you would have already done it, Akainu. Your government still needs to use me, and this is the case in all aspects. Whether it is intelligence or strength, you need me to temporarily join Shichibukai to serve you. Blackbeard was not afraid at all, and his voice was even louder than Akainu. Obviously, he was not afraid of Akainu and believed that Gorosei and Marine would not kill him. This is interesting, Akainu is so worried about Blackbeard, it's rare. Dustless, who planned to go home and sleep, stopped and looked at the situation with interest. Dustless, who watched people carefully, knew that Akainu really wanted to kill Blackbeard, and he couldn't wait to do it. He didn't dare to do it, which shows that Blackbeard has something the government needs in his hands. It seems that he dares to go alone, but this old boy has a trick up his sleeve. The doubts in Dustless's heart disappeared and he changed his route and turned to the place where Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, usually work. Akainu's sudden appearance in Martialworld indicates that other marine high-level officials may also be in Martialworld. Of course, it also includes other Shichibukai. This time, something terrible obviously happened. Shichibukai, including Marine's high-level officials, all gathered in Martialworld. Obviously there is a deeper meaning. After thinking for a while, Dustless quickened his pace. Seeing Dustless leave, Blackbeard also followed, but Akainu blocked his retreat. "Bastard, why didn't you stop him?" Blackbeard asked with a black face. "That's because my status is not as good as his, and I have no right to control him, but you are different," Akainu said lightly. Chapter 756. Blackbeard opened his belly, and the chest hair in front of him was trembling. His bloodshot eyes stared at the expressionless Sakazuki, gasping for breath. Blackbeard is not an idiot, on the contrary, he is very smart. Sakazuki's words deliberately satirized him as a nobody not worth mentioning. This is also an undeniable fact. After all, even if Blackbeard's strength is comparable to an admiral, but in the second half of the Grand Line, there are many strong people who have reached the level of an admiral, or the strength that can indirectly compete with an admiral. People like Blackbeard, who currently have 0 bounty, are rare. "I hope you don't beg me." With a snort, Blackbeard simply sat on the ground and rested casually, humming an ugly and disgusting tune, enjoying it. His expression was leisurely and he looked quite comfortable. But the fierceness in his eyes from time to time shows that his heart is not calm. "Damn Whitebeard. I will tear you to pieces in the future." The tide-like tingling swept through the whole body, and Blackbeard's rough face turned blue and white. He swore in his heart that one day in the future, he must break Whitebeard's bones and scatter his ashes. Today's insults, in the final analysis, all originated from Whitebeard, especially Blackbeard, who was bruised all over, and the initiator of all this was Whitebeard. It's normal to be ignored when he came to the world government begging for Shichibukai. Hey. This is the new pirate who is about to join Shichibukai. I thought it was a great character, but it turned out to be a little-known small character. The government called us here for this kind of thing. Boring. He laughed, and the same laughter as Blackbeard came. Hearing the disdain and disappointment in the tone, Blackbeard's heart suddenly exploded, and his eyes shot a cold, murderous aura. He came to Martialworld to apply for Shichibukai, not to be ridiculed in succession. "It's you?" His murderous tone was filled with astonishment. It was obvious that the sudden appearance of this figure had surprised him. Then he frowned and blew out a cold breath from his mouth. "Brother Doflamingo, I'm not interested in talking nonsense with you." Disdain flashed across Blackbeard's eyes as he looked at him coldly. Others might be afraid of Doflamingo, but he wasn't. Blackbeard couldn't arouse the slightest interest in such a small character. Although he also had the strength of a great general, it also meant that he would forever stop there. When Doflamingo heard this, his expression immediately turned gloomy. Doflamingo locked onto Blackbeard like a venomous snake. Never in his wildest dreams would he have expected this guy to be so arrogant. What makes Doflamingo even angrier is that Akainu and Hawkeye, as well as other Shichibukai, heard it clearly at this moment, obviously slapping his face in front of everyone. The veins on his forehead bulged continuously, as if there were worms swimming in his brain. It was extremely horrifying. "You are not a Shichibukai yet. You are just a pirate with a little strength. If I kill you, I will punish evil and do good. Maybe the Marine will thank me." Doflamingo raised his thick arm, and thin lines that could not be seen by the naked eye gathered at the tip of his thumb. Bullet line. The thin line like a cannonball shot out and blasted towards Blackbeard's left eye. The method was cruel, and it was not difficult to see that Doflamingo really wanted to kill him. "Insignificant skill, if you want to defeat me at this level, you still need 10 years. Just by turning his head sideways, Blackbeard easily escaped Doflamingo's attack. He raised his right hand and it turned black in an instant, erupting this terrible gravity. Just as he was about to use his ability to suck Doflamingo over and beat him up, Akainu's voice sounded. "If you want to fight, this old man will not stop you, but—" His cold eyes circled around Doflamingo. Blackbeard. His sharp eyes were obviously sizing up his prey. "However, if you think that the price you have to pay after this is not a big deal, You can try it. After that, Akainu closed his eyes and quietly cultivated his body, holding his hands in front of him, looking as if it had nothing to do with him. Hey, this time I will give Sakazuki face. Doflamingo's raised arm also lowered, and his killing intent converged. He looked straight at Akainu's face and the evil smile became more obvious and deep. You overconfident little pawn. Glancing at Doflamingo with disdain, Blackbeard also stopped. This is the territory of the world government, and there are countless strong people hiding in the dark. It is tantamount to courting death to fight openly. Despite this, the two refused to talk about each other. This guy is stronger than me. The eyes under the glasses were shining with wisdom, and Doflamingo looked slightly surprised. The reason why he took the initiative to provoke Blackbeard was actually Dustless's order. Just by dodging at will, Doflamingo could see the strength of Blackbeard today. Blackbeard's observation haki has obviously reached the point of perfection. These days, Blackbeard has been crazily devouring ability users. It is estimated that he has devoured hundreds of kinds of ability users through the dark fruit, and this is Dustless's conservative estimate. Blackbeard has devoured a large number of ability users, so he has a lot of abilities. It is unknown how many abilities he has, but it is certain that according to Blackbeard's ambition, the more abilities he has, the more the better. If he encounters a useful ability user, it will be difficult to escape his claws. Therefore, his strength has also soared rapidly, and he can only know what realm he has reached by himself. Chapter 757. Even if the two of them hadn't made any substantial progress, Doflamingo's shrewd eyes could still clearly see Blackbeard's nature. His strength had already reached the realm of perfection, and Doflamingo estimated that his chances of winning against the current Blackbeard were only 30%. But this does not mean that he is afraid of Blackbeard. Not to mention that there is Dustless's temporary protection. Martialworld will act rashly and throw herself into hell. Instead, Eagle Eye's sharp gaze was faintly discernible as it sized up Blackbeard with some curiosity. Occasionally, a thick battle intent flashed across its threatening eyes. Obviously, he regards Blackbeard as a prey. Sakazuki, I hope that what the government mentioned before is a joke. Jinbe's face was gloomy like water. Whitebeard was so kind to him. Now the government is forcibly summoning Shichibukai. His heart is naturally unwilling to fight with Whitebeard. What's more, Whitebeard had once sheltered the Fishman Island. You want to disobey? Suddenly opening his eyes, Akainu said coldly, Whitebeard will die this time. Fishman Island better not make a mistake. One wrong step and there will be no redemption. Sakazuki admitted it as a matter of course. As an iron-blooded soldier, he doesn't like to joke and hate to lie. It's his nature to be straightforward. Yes, this old man came here this time to refuse this mission. Exuding a majestic aura, Jinbe looked at Akainu's eyes and admitted frankly. Hey. Seeing this scene, Doflamingo laughed again. Although it was the same gloomy, he was obviously surprised. When it came to Martialworld, Dustless ordered White Zetsu to contact him secretly. During this period, he said that Jinbe may withdraw from Shichibukai. Doflamingo thought it was just speculation, but he didn't expect it to be true. It's incredible. Can that guy really predict the future? Doflamingo felt a chill run down his spine. Everything that had happened before was just a coincidence. It seemed like it was just his wishful thinking. Doflamingo was instinctively afraid of Dustless' ability to see the future. Being able to predict the future meant that the general development of the world was controlled by Dustless. The future development and the momentum of the world could be controlled by Dustless. This old man will go and seek an explanation from the 5 honored stars. After that, Jinbe ignored everyone and went straight to the office of the Gorosei, 5 elder stars. Seriously? Jinbe is such a troublemaker. On the majestic tall building, Dustless looked down at the crowd below. After which, he helplessly shook his head and directly walked towards the corridor in front of him. Dustless had already set up a transcription seal in Jinbe's body. At a specific time and place, it would suddenly activate, and at that time he would use unexpected means to attack Whitebeard. If you used it well, it would naturally be as ferocious as a tiger. If you messed it up, it would hurt others and yourself. They all seemed to be here. Akiji, who was close to the window, looked down at Shichibukai below and muttered in a low voice. Although his voice was soft, everyone present was an expert among experts. Thus they could hear him clearly. Go and call Sakazuki and the Shichibukai, including Blackbeard. Sengoku ordered the guard beside him. Obviously he had already planned to pull Blackbeard into the Shichibukai. Sitting on the sofa, the 5 elder stars frowned slightly, his eyes spread, and suddenly realized that the Marine was missing a very important person. Anyway, where did that guy Garp go? It seems that he rarely... Boom! At this moment, the closed door of the conference room was suddenly smashed open. The blue-skinned fishman came into view, and there was no doubt that he was the Knight of the Sea Jinbi. The eyes of the 5 elder stars who had spoken before flashed with murderous intent, and the old sword in front of him trembled. This was the first time that someone dared to speak so boldly without giving him face. Especially in front of so many people, it was tantamount to publicly slapping his face. Why do you always have such an insensible guy? Dustless couldn't help but shake his head. Others may not know the reason, but he naturally knew why Jinbi was angry. Whitebeard was Jinbi's most respected and beloved pirate. Now the Marine may directly attack the Whitebeard pirates, which angered his bottom line. However, what Dustless didn't expect was that this guy was so bold that he didn't care about the occasion. The people present were all Marine's top battle powers, and if he wanted to rebel, he would die. Give me a reasonable explanation, Jinbi? The bald Gorosei with the sword stood up and roared. His anger surged and rushed towards Jinbi like a level 10 storm. What a strong murderous intent. Sensing the bone-piercing cold murderous aura, Jinbi's skin trembled slightly. This high-density murderous aura deprived the surrounding air and sucked away everyone's energy, making it difficult for Jinbi to breathe. This old man also needs a reasonable explanation. Thinking of Whitebeard's great kindness, Jinbi asked with a scalp. Explanation? You mean why do you want to deal with Whitebeard? The bald Gorosei sneered disdainfully and scolded him in his heart. He immediately said bluntly, the world government is a synonym for justice. It is a matter of course to deal with the evil pirates. There is no need for superfluous words. It's Marine's job to deal with pirates, and they don't need any explanation for plotting against the Whitebeard pirates. They are mortal enemies with each other. Chapter 759. Dustless cast a hopeless look at Jinbi. He could understand Jinbi's mood, but if he wanted to be angry, at least he had to look at where he was. At first glance, Jinbi, who was angry, must have forgotten this, and his mind may only be filled with Whitebeard. There are always so many people who don't know what's good for them. Dustless sighed secretly and simply closed his eyes. In the original work, Jinbi was arrested because he was dissatisfied with Marine's strategy against Whitebeard, so he chose to make a big fuss in Martialworld. In the end, he could not change his fate of being cruelly suppressed. After being defeated, he was thrown into the eternal hell of Impel Down. Jinbi, don't forget where this is Martialworld. Don't make a mistake. Sengoku's words were full of warning and he cursed in his heart. He thought that the Marine had treated him well. He didn't expect this guy to be so unappreciative. He even collided with the Marine's decision for Whitebeard. Even looking at the situation in front of him, there was a trend of parting ways with heroicjourney. This old man and Whitebeard have a good relationship. This mission against the Whitebeard pirates, I'm sorry, it's difficult to obey. With a determined look in his eyes, he took in all the high-level Marine officials and the look of Gorosei, 5 elder stars, and Jinbi announced with a powerful tone. Sengoku's old face went straight, full of cold killing intent. It's difficult to obey. In other words, you don't intend to participate in this mission. The hoarse voice with no human emotions sounded suddenly, and the dull footsteps were getting closer and closer. Dustless's closed eyes slowly opened, and Akainu and the rest of the Shichibukai appeared, and the door of the conference room was blocked by their wide bodies. Yes, I won't participate in this mission. Glancing at Akainu, Jinbi's tone was unshakable. It was not difficult to hear that he was going to follow Whitebeard's path. Akainu's thick black eyebrows wrinkled slightly, and his eyes forgot Sengoku. The latter was silent and just nodded after a while. Refusing to perform this task means that you will be deprived of the title of Shichibukai. Lowering his voice, Sengoku said earnestly. Deprived of the title of Shichibukai, Jinbi has since returned to being a pirate who committed all kinds of crimes. It is natural for the Marine to arrest pirates. It is self-evident that Jinbi is in a wolf's den. They will be arrested immediately. I didn't expect that old man's best friend to be everywhere. A dissatisfied and hateful roar spread and entered Jinbi's ears. He suddenly looked back and saw Blackbeard with a red face. Blackbeard was originally a vulgar person, plus he was a pirate. Naturally he didn't pay attention to the situation. These harsh words fell into Jinbi's ears. New hatred and old hatred superimposed, the flames in Jinbi's heart instantly increased. His scarlet eyes were ferocious like a tiger's, and a rapid oppressive aura broke out of his body, ruthlessly raging like a storm. But Whitebeard's dog, how dare you be so arrogant? Blackbeard was also not a kind person. He was shocked by Jinbe's murderous aura. Not only did he tolerate it, but he also deliberately opened his mouth to provoke Jinbe, who was close to going berserk. He laughed and said, although he was not killed by that old thing, he was also injured. Maybe one day he will be drinking and chatting with the Pirate King in Hades? Blackbeard's voice was full of sarcasm, and his words revealed that Whitebeard was on the verge of death, as if he could die with the wind at any time. You're looking for death. Jinbe's anger broke out and he rushed over like a storm. He clenched his hand into a fist and smashed it towards Blackbeard's face. How can you beat me with such a fragile fist? Blackbeard smiled disdainfully when he saw this, and his dark fist also smashed out. Boom, 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 the air suddenly burst, causing a strong impact. The air waves roared out and turned into an invisible impact. All the glass in the closed conference room was shattered. You too. Akainu was furious when he saw this and was about to cruelly suppress the two, but Sengoku's eyes were cast over first, indicating that he should not act rashly. Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, did not stop them, and they did not need to worry. This guy is trying to anger Jinbe. What is he trying to do? His clear eyes were filled with doubts and puzzlement. Blackbeard obviously deliberately angered Jinbe. It was not as simple as kicking Jinbe out of Shichibukai. Seeing that everyone was sitting still with rapt attention, Wuxian also chose to turn a deaf ear to it. Doflamingo saw that everyone's eyes were focused on Blackbeard and Jinbe, and while everyone was not paying attention, he quietly walked to Dustless and stood beside him. Whitebeard took the initiative to contact Shanks, and the two of them may join forces. Doflamingo said in a voice that only Dustless and himself could hear. Hearing this, Dustless nodded gently. His gaze immediately fell on Blackbeard, and a look of understanding flashed in his eyes. No wonder this guy could escape from Whitebeard. He probably sold Fire Fist Ace's information to escape. Whitebeard really won't give up Fire Fist Ace. For a little devil he will break into hell. Is it better to say that his love is as deep as the sea or incurable? Dustless asked. Of course he's an idiot. With disdain on his face, Doflamingo scoffed at this. Knowing that there are tigers in the mountain, what is this if not idiotic behavior? He could devour devil fruits without limit, which meant that he could use any fruit in the world. So what? Dustless glanced at Blackbeard and asked rhetorically. Dustless looked at Blackbeard with disdain. His eyes flashed with a strange light. Blackbeard would be at the level of one of the 4 emperors at his peak. It's still not enough to be feared. He looked at Sengoku playfully. It's him who has a headache. This old guy is probably regretting it now. Damn bastard, I made a mistake. Sengoku's expression solidified and he stared at Blackbeard cautiously. His heart fell to the bottom and he fell into a dilemma. His eyes flashed with killing intent. Suddenly he realized that bringing Blackbeard into the Shichibukai was like raising a tiger. This ferocious tiger will sooner or later show his ferocious fangs to the world. Fleet Admiral, this guy seems a bit evil. Akiji, who was close to Sengoku, said with a heavy expression. Sengoku nodded undeniably. Although he had designated Blackbeard as a dangerous person before and had paid more attention to him, he did not expect to underestimate him. This damn bastard calculated everything in advance. Sengoku looked gloomy and his tone was hoarse. He hated Blackbeard. Yes, if we arrest him here, the prestige that Marine has established over the years will be swept away. Akiji nodded in agreement. Using the position of Shichibukai to deceive pirates to besiege Mariewa is not a good reputation. It is absolutely fatal to Marine. Now the whole world knows that Blackbeard was invited by Marine to Mariewa to accept the title of Shichibukai. If they take advantage of the situation to kill Blackbeard, Marine will definitely become the laughingstock of the world. It doesn't matter if he is despicable or shameless, but at least he can't make it known to everyone, let alone to the extent that the whole world knows about it. Now that the arrow is on the string, Blackbeard joining Shichibukai is unstoppable and it is impossible to refuse. Sengoku's eyes changed quickly, obviously thinking about countermeasures. Blackbeard is more despicable than Whitebeard. Even if Blackbeard is not as strong as Whitebeard, it is only temporary, and Blackbeard is far more cunning and shameless than Whitebeard. In order to achieve his goal, he will do anything. At the very least, Whitebeard had morals when he did certain things. However, Blackbeard in front of him was cold and callous. He was capable of doing any kind of crazy things. Lifting a stone and smashing his own foot. Looking at Sengoku's old face, Dustless scolded him. Sengoku's calculation is unparalleled, and Blackbeard is also an expert in playing tricks. Chapter 761. Blackbeard is extremely cunning. Sengoku is smart, but compared with the despicable and unscrupulous Blackbeard, Sengoku is obviously worse. It's not that Sengoku is not as smart as Blackbeard, but Sengoku still has benevolence in his heart, and there is an essential gap between him and Blackbeard. With the passage of time, Jinbe's defeat is only a matter of time. After all, the difference between the two of them was too great. It was like the difference between heaven and earth. Blackbeard didn't have the dark fruit before, but his strength was already at the level of a general. Now that he had consumed the dark fruit and devoured a large number of ability users, his strength had increased significantly. It's no wonder that Sengoku is so worried. Compared with the old Whitebeard, the current Blackbeard is equivalent to the rising sun, and his potential is greater than Whitebeard. Boom boom boom, with a loud bang, Jinbe, who was covered in blood, flew out upside down. His whole body was stained with blood. His body swayed from side to side as if he would fall to the ground at any moment if a gust of wind were to blow him. Seeing this scene, including Dustless, everyone present had a complex expression, and their hearts were mixed. Even the always cold Akainu's expression was a little loose. This guy is stupid. Whitebeard is just using him, but he's not afraid of death. Doflamingo had an incorrigible expression. His eyes were full of contempt and disdain, as if he was looking at an idiot. Dustless looked up at Doflamingo standing there and felt that he was cursing himself in disguise. Enough, Jinbe, this mission against the Whitebeard pirates, do you refuse or choose to accept it? If you refuse, you know what will happen to you. Sengoku warned with a threatening tone. This fool is Whitebeard's best friend. He has been brainwashed. It's useless to say more. If you want him to change his mind, I think it's better to ask Whitebeard to turn over a new leaf. Blackbeard immediately said sarcastically. Hearing this, Sengoku just gave him a cold look. Blackbeard. Sengoku planned to persuade him, but Dustless's voice sounded in advance, attracting everyone's attention, including Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, who looked at Dustless without moving. Is it an illusion? Looking into Dustless's eyes, Blackbeard had a special feeling in his heart. His indifferent eyes were as calm as an ancient well. His clear eyes seemed to be able to see through people's hearts. Blackbeard subconsciously took a step back. Under that indifferent gaze, all his secrets seemed to be exposed to the air. You challenged him. Dustless raised his finger and pointed at Jinbe. He said indifferently, deliberately provoking him with fierce words. Your purpose is nothing more than to show your strength and establish your prestige. Really, you are just like a little kid. To join the Shichibukai, you must be strong and must be recognized. I don't think it's too much to show your strength through this traitor. After being exposed by Dustless, Blackbeard should have said this. Dustless stood up and stretched when he heard the words. He yawned and looked sleepy, then he said lazily, don't forget where you are. Martialworld is not a place where you can mess around. If you still want to be unscrupulous, you might as well change your opponent. Dustless said with a relaxed look. Hearing this, Blackbeard was stunned, and his eyes subconsciously spread out. He saw that all the high-level Marines, including the silent Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, were faintly dissatisfied, and their hostility was restrained. It's just a disguised way to establish prestige. It's an idiotic behavior to provoke public anger. I'll let you go this time, next time. Blackbeard's eyes were full of killing intent as he stared at Jinbe. It's not difficult to see that if it weren't for Sengoku and others, he would have killed Jinbe immediately. For the characters of the Whitebeard pirates, Blackbeard was hostile and resentful. This appearance of gnashing teeth made him want to grind bones and scatter ashes. Even so, Blackbeard still let Jinbe go. The world government's base camp provoked the Marine, so even Roger the Pirate King would hate this place. Jinbe, I'll ask you for the last time, this mission, will you participate or refuse? Taking a deep breath, Sengoku asked in a low voice. At the same time he gave Akainu a look, which means that as long as Jinbe dares to openly resist, he will be arrested. I'm sorry to disappoint you, Sengoku, this mission is difficult to comply with. Without even thinking about it, Jinbe refused with righteous words. He was bleeding all over and Blackbeard was seriously injured. He sat on the ground and gasped for breath. At this moment he was already a fish on the chopping board and could only be slaughtered. At the moment when his voice fell, Akainu turned into a rolling heat wave, and his emotionless eyes were dead. In his hand was a thick dark iron chain, and he skillfully locked Jinbe like a dumpling. Waste of resources, directly killing Yongi and even catching him, a group of idiots. Blackbeard whispered. This was the opposite of his method of killing people. In Blackbeard's eyes, this is like releasing a tiger back to the mountain. There are infinite possibilities in the future. Since Shiki was able to give up everything to successfully escape from prison, maybe he can successfully escape in the future. Killing everything is the way of the king. Don't compare the Marine with people like you. Sengoku glanced at Blackbeard with a bad face, and his tone was filled with endless boredom. Killing captives at will is even worse than the evil existence of pirates. Chapter 762. The red-skinned blonde Gorosei, his old eyes shining, carefully looked at Blackbeard and nodded. Even if the two sides are opposite, he has to admit that this guy has some courage. The government can promise you to become one of the Shichibukai, but I advise you to be smart and don't kill yourself. The blonde Gorosei warned with a blank face, his eyes emitted a cold air, and the deadly oppression swept out, like a storm ravaging everyone present. Everyone present clearly felt that countless sharp knives flashed on their backs, as if as long as they moved, they could poke holes all over their bodies. Every step is dangerous, and if you don't pay attention you will easily suffer fatal damage. It seems that as long as you resist, you will be killed mercilessly. Whether it is the 7 warlords of the sea, or the Marines' high-level officials, they all looked at the blonde Gorosei with fear, showing awe. The Gorosei is not only the Marines' top boss, everyone is a shocking strong man. Only Wu Chen was able to maintain a calm and collected expression. As for Blackbeard, his forehead was oozing with cold sweat, and the dense sweat slowly fell like raindrops, making his thick black hair shitty. That's for sure, I will work for the government. Patting his huge rough belly, Blackbeard vowed. This appearance, his performance was more professional than Sengoku and other navies. Blackbeard is greedy for life and afraid of death. He doesn't have the courage of Red Hair Shanks and Whitebeard. Useless waste. Doflamingo despised, full of sarcasm. Even though Doflamingo was only muttering softly, everyone present was a predator at the top of the pyramid. Every aspect of their bodies had been trained to the limit, so Doflamingo's mockery naturally fell into everyone's ears. Blackbeard's face suddenly collapsed, and he stared at Doflamingo with uncertainty. Looking at Dustless beside him, his old eyes flashed with fear and deep fear. The scene of being easily crushed by Dustless, to this day, the painful haze of the past can't be waved away. Dog relying on master's power. Blackbeard glanced fiercely at Doflamingo as he mocked in disdain. What did you say? Doflamingo's face changed greatly when he heard this. He was not like Jinbe. Blackbeard's tone showed that he did not put him in his eyes at all. He was not even as good as Jinbe. You're not convinced? The corners of Blackbeard's mouth curled into a sneer as he said disdainfully. He squinted his eyes and stared at the angry Doflamingo like a hunter who had caught sight of his prey. In fact, as Doflamingo guessed, Blackbeard didn't put him in his eyes. Compared to Jinbe, who was not afraid of death, Blackbeard hated him even more. Don't push your luck. Doflamingo took a step forward, and 5 different colored lines suddenly appeared in his hand. They were sharper than a chainsaw and could easily cut a human body into pieces. Stop, there is no need to fight with Blackbeard. Dustless calmly used his eyes to stop Doflamingo's actions. Blackbeard was exceptionally cunning. There was no need to argue with him in front of so many people. Doing so would only cause him to fall into his trap. It's these 5 old guys. The corner of his eyes focused on Gorosei, 5 elder stars, observing the movements of several people back and forth. Dustless's heart was a little curious. Suddenly he remembered the experience of White Zetsu. When White Zetsu spied on Gorosei, 5 elder stars, he was discovered by these 5 people. If he didn't escape in advance, he would have turned into a pair of lusts more than 10 years ago. Their strength was beyond imagination. What is the Marine going to do with Fire Fist? The bald Gorosei, 5 elder stars, holding Itachi asked. Wearing a white robe, he looked cold and invisibly revealed a piercing sword intent. Invisibly, the wind was unparalleled, enough to easily cut off everything in the world. Hawkeye, who was leaning against the corner and closing his eyes, suddenly opened his eyes and noticed the sword intent left in the air. His eagle-like eyes jumped with a threatening chill, making people shudder. There is still a big gap. With a sigh, Hawkeye shook his head and closed his eyes again. His tone was faintly bleak. It is most appropriate to publicly execute the Whitebeard pirates. Use waste and squeeze out his last value. The silent Akainu interjected. Sengoku nodded. Gather all the battle power of Shichibukai and Marine headquarters. It is not a big problem to deal with, Jianghu, 4 emperors. If there is no accident, Whitebeard will become history this time. Dustless always remained silent. As a marine admiral, he seemed to have nothing to do. In fact, Dustless was really light. He just listened to these tedious tasks and there was no need to speak. Akagami, red hair, one of the Jianghu, 4 emperors, has a good relationship with Whitebeard. He may help him. Akiji whispered, thinking of the recent information. His tone was full of caution. Hearing this, everyone frowned at the same time. 1 Jianghu, 4 emperors, is enough to deal with. 2 Jianghu, 4 emperors, together will trample the marine headquarters. There is no need to worry about this. Dustless suddenly said, a pirate is always a pirate. Such trivial things as robbing territory happen from time to time. 100 Beast Kaido and the old man Whitebeard have a lot of contradictions. Maybe he will take advantage of the situation to attack Whitebeard. Even if Akagami, red hair, and Whitebeard join forces, they must consider the unstable factor of Kaido. It is Whitebeard who should be worried, not us. A pirate is a pirate. Whitebeard's head is not only a marine in this world, but also a pirate. Chapter 763. There is no doubt that the stronger he is, the higher his status is. This kind of person generally comes out of a mountain of corpses and blood, so he has offended countless people in his life. In particular, Whitebeard, a predator at the top of the food chain, had offended countless pirates. He stepped on the corpses of countless pirates to reach the peak. Whitebeard killed countless people in his life or indirectly because of him. There were countless people who died because of him. Therefore, Whitebeard has many enemies. 100 Beast Kaido is one of them, and he has an inexplicable grudge with Whitebeard. That's reasonable. In that case, Fire Fist Ace will be publicly executed after he recovers. Temporarily block the news and don't let the outside world know about it. Staring at Dustless's face, Sengoku said seriously. Others may not know, but Sengoku is clear that Fire Fist Ace is not only the son of Whitebeard, but he is also the son of the Pirate King Roger. It is necessary to take precautions. After all, many of the former Pirate King's subordinates are still alive in this world. Wait, although I also have a grudge with Whitebeard, I can't wait to tear him to pieces, but there are some things that must be made clear in advance. The gloomy and strange sharp voice broke the heavy atmosphere in the conference room. Everyone frowned and moved their eyes gently. What caught their eyes was a huge body. Where everyone's eyes focused, it was a monster that looked like a bat. At first glance, it looked like a bat in human form. Moria. What do you mean? His thick black eyebrows condensed, Sengoku's eyes were filled with displeasure, and his words revealed a warning. I hope your vision is high enough to see the future clearly. Don't make a mistake like Jinbe. The overlord of the sea will always be the marine. Pointing to Jinbe, who had been subdued, Sengoku's voice was hoarse. He cursed pirates in his heart. When he saw the situation was not good, he chose to slip away and retreat. A bunch of useless fools who only know how to sail with the wind. Sengoku's heart was filled with anger, and his eyes were full of flames. These so-called 7 warlords of the sea are all opportunistic scoundrels. There are very few who can be useful at critical times. It seems that Moria wants to make conditions. Dustless said as the doubts in his eyes disappeared. After thinking about it, he felt relieved. After all, he was dealing with a giant like Whitebeard. If he didn't give some benefits, who would work for him? At the same time, he gave Doflamingo a strange look. Blackbeard's pupils were also twitching. Obviously, he was also tempted. He could see through Moonlight Moria's thoughts. I'm just an ordinary character, but as a Shichibukai, I have the responsibility to help the marine. But, with a sudden change of topic, Gecko Moria said, Whitebeard is not a Tom, Dick, or Harry. He deserves to be the king of the world. If you can get Bailey by killing ordinary bounty criminals, I naturally need the same thing. Pirates have always been straightforward, and Gecko Moria was not ambiguous. He directly asked Sengoku for a reward. Of course, he was not referring to Bailey. For a big pirate like Gecko Moria, Bailey is just a number and a concept. As long as he wants it, he can get it easily with a wave of his hand. The task of 7 warlords of the sea is just to cooperate with the marine. It does not mean that they are marine subordinates. It is reasonable to ask for rewards for such a shocking task like dealing with Whitebeard. We bear the risk of a head-on confrontation with Whitebeard, and the marine must pay the price. Bartholomew Xiongzantong, who had been silent, said, This guy. It seems that it is impossible to control them by modifying their memories. Staring at the big bear who had returned to normal, Dustless was surprised. When he used his pupil to modify Ursa Major's memory, the command set in his mind was to be loyal to Dustless. However, in the end, because he obtained Vegapunk's bloodline factor, information on creating artificial demons with bloodline factor, he betrayed him to Vegapunk for human experiments. Looking at his current state, although his body has been transformed, it is obvious that he has regained his original memory. Vegapunk, that old guy, is really not simple. Staring at the big bear, Dustless felt a trace of admiration in his heart. Obviously, Vegapunk had transformed the big bear's brain, otherwise the bear would not have been able to find the memory of the past. Transvestite King Ivankov can help Durag recover his memory, which is what Dustless expected. His ability is to transform the human body, including the human brain. Of course, this transformation also comes with a price, lifespan. But Vegapunk has transformed the brain by scientific means, relying on his own knowledge. He has some ability. Let's go with the flow. Anyway, they're all small pawns. Even if they can find the memory that was modified by me in the past. The nature of the ants has not changed and their strength is as weak as before. Looking at the scene in front of him calmly, Dustless was extraordinarily calm. Even if the memory of the past is recovered, everything is still the same as before. Bartholomew challenged Dustless again and faced the same ending. He was ruthlessly crushed. At the same time, Dustless looked at Doflamingo again. Yes, to deal with a powerful character like Whitebeard, the government will not give any benefits. That old man is very likely to join forces with Akagami, one of the Yonko, 4 emperors. Shichibukai is risking our lives. It is really difficult to accept that the government is not willing to give us anything. With a few strange laughs, Doflamingo, who was signaled by Dustless, took advantage of the situation. If you have any requests, just state them. The 5 honored stars with a scar on his forehead waved his hand and put on a rich and overbearing appearance. If you want to impress the pirates, you must pay an equal price. Otherwise, it is impossible to expect this group of desperados to work for you. After Whitebeard is killed, I need his body. Gecko Moria said fanatically. Hearing this, Wu Qin glanced at the excited Moria and suddenly felt that this guy was like an idiot. This kind of thing should be destroyed by the government rather than given to him casually. However, since the 5 honored stars chose to give up, Dustless will naturally not let go of such a good opportunity to rob. It's not too late to say your conditions later. What about the whereabouts of Nico Robin? The Gorosei 5 elder stars, with long hair and beard, were dissatisfied. He looked at Akiji with dissatisfaction. After escaping from Crocodile's hands, she seemed to have disappeared without a trace. I need a reasonable explanation, Kazan. Hearing this, Akiji's face flashed with embarrassment. He was responsible for Nico Robin's affairs. After the last time they went to Alabasta, Nico Robin disappeared. Sorry, last time she escaped there was no trace. It is estimated that Nico Robin should have joined the Straw Hat Pirates. Akiji said helplessly. If I didn't guess wrong, the next stop of the Straw Hat Pirates is Water 7. Akiji's eyes flashed with a cold light. At that time I will arrest her myself. Somewhere on an island in the New World. Next to a sunny island, the Akagami, red hair, pirates were temporarily cultivating here. Akagami, red hair, Shanks was used to wandering around and had no special island as a base. Wandering the 4 seas, wandering to the ends of the world, anywhere could be home. This era has gone berserk. Under the dense coconut trees, Ben Beckman sighed. His eyes were hesitant and he was deeply uneasy about the future. It may be a trap, but Whitebeard has to drill into it. It's not a possibility, it's a certainty. Blocking the dazzling sun with his hands, Akagami, red hair, Shanks sighed with his head down. Should we agree to join forces with Whitebeard? Ben Beckman stared at the hesitant Akagami, red hair, Shanks and said in a deep voice, from the vice-captain's point of view, I personally do not agree with joining forces with the Whitebeard pirates. You know that man's strength is like a bottomless pit. Beckman said gloomily. Akagami, red hair, Shanks remained calm. He had expected Beckman's attitude. To be fair, he was also a little overwhelmed at this time. But some things can't be avoided. Chapter 765. The red-haired Shanks heaved a long sigh. He looked up at the warm sunlight and felt helpless. Some people were just like the stars in the sky. It was not as simple as hard work to be on par with them. Sometimes Whitebeard is like a child who hasn't grown up. Beckman sighed, knowing that the Marine headquarters is a trap, but he still intends to break in. He's no different from a willful child. No, maybe he's not even as good as a child. At least a child will be frightened and obey discipline. Do you think people like Whitebeard will obey the discipline of others? Red-haired Shanks smiled bitterly. Obviously he was trying to find joy in his bitterness. That's right. Beckman shook his head. Whitebeard won't obey discipline. Whitebeard's stubborn character is known all over the world. It's impossible for him to abandon his ideas and obey others. In a way, it's because of his stubbornness and lack of flexibility that led to the current tragedy. Whitebeard doesn't understand this truth. There is no retreat in his dictionary of life. Shanks. Moving his mouth, Beckman looked at the red-haired Shanks, whose expression was constantly changing. He could empathize with the red-haired Shanks, and he knew that the latter was suffering. He couldn't ignore Fire Fist Ace. After all, he was Roger's former crew member, and Roger's kindness to him was as heavy as a mountain. Red-Hair Shanks couldn't ignore the fact that the son of his benefactor was in a hopeless situation. In fact, it's better to join forces with the Whitebeard pirates. We have a detailed plan. Maybe we can have unexpected results. Staring at Shanks's firm eyes, Beckman finally chose to give in. If he was the captain, he would definitely end this cooperation. Only a hothead would do something like walking right into a trap. You didn't stop me? Looking at Beckman in surprise, Shanks was surprised. In his heart, Beckman has always been a serious and unsmiling person. Once he thinks that the mission is hopeless, he will refuse without hesitation and will never give in. Beckman looked at Red-Hair Shanks and said with a rare tone of sadness, "If I stop you and you listen to my orders, I will stop you." Beckman said as the captain of the Akagami, Red Hair, Pirates was Akagami, Red Hair, and it was useless to stop him. Moreover, just like what the red-haired man had said, there were some things that could not be avoided. Even if they retreated to the ends of the earth, they would not be of much use. What was to come would come, and there was no way to avoid it. Looks like you've already made your choice. An unfamiliar figure suddenly appeared in Beckman and the red-haired Shanks' line of sight. This person was clearly not the red-haired sneaky spy, and his face was unfamiliar to them. Marco, it's rude to eavesdrop on other people's conversations. Seeing Marco appear, Beckman said indifferently. The red-haired man, on the other hand, had an indifferent look on his face. His eyes glowed with an awe-inspiring light, silently telling everyone that everything was under his control. It was obvious that he had been aware of Marco's existence for a long time. The previous conversation was obviously deliberately exposed to Marco so that they could deepen the connection between them. I believe that our cooperation will be very pleasant. Marco smiled politely. I hope so. Compared to the cautious red-haired Shanks, Marco's expression was much more optimistic, which reduced the tense atmosphere and dispelled the oppressive environment. However, no one could see the smile in Marco's eyes. You secretly lurked from the Whitebeard pirates, it shouldn't be just to eavesdrop on us. Beckman said meaningfully. That's for sure, I also came with my father's perfect plan. In fact, this time it's far more than just the Whitebeard pirates and the Akagami pirates joining forces. There are other big forces joining, pirates who hate the marine or indirectly hate the government. There are many pirates in this world. Marco smiled pleasantly. The marine has too many enemies. With the influence of the Jianghu, 4 emperors, as long as they raise their arms, countless pirates will join in this operation. You mean those small fries who sail according to the wind? It's not that I deliberately hit you, but that group of people is useless. Beckman glanced at Marco faintly, and his tone was contemptuous. You're right. Marco also had a contemptuous attitude towards those rookie pirates. But if the ants are well controlled, they can also play an unexpected role. In the blink of an eye, about 2 weeks of time had passed. The Marine and Whitebeard both concealed the news of Fire Fist Ace's capture. The Marine naturally didn't want to alert the enemy. As for Whitebeard, he also pretended to be ignorant. The Marine's purpose was to use Fire Fist Ace to catch Whitebeard. Whitebeard didn't fall, which meant that Fire Fist Ace was safe for the time being. The world is impermanent. Staring at the blue sea in the distance because of Dustless, the butterfly wings flapped too hard, so the current world was completely different from the original work. I heard that Kuzan has already acted, and it seems that he has inquired about the Straw Hats. Those guys are really unlucky. At first they met me and finally they were killed by Akiji. A fragile pirate group meeting 2 admirals in a row, it's really bad luck. 2 days ago the Marines secretly got the trace of the Straw Hats, and Akiji himself has already rushed there. This time he will be the one to deal with the Straw Hats. If they meet an admiral with the current strength of the Straw Hats, they will be completely wiped out. However, Dustless clearly remembered that in the original work, for some reason, Akiji finally gave up the pursuit of the Straw Hats. Chapter 766. Marine Headquarter, Marin. The sky was cloudless and the sky was quiet and blue. Occasionally, a few lazy white clouds floated by, and the sun shone down from the sky, and the whole world was full of vitality. Spring flowers were blooming, showing the signs of recovery. Really, why am I always the unlucky one? Damn God, are you purposely going against me? In the Marine Admiral's office, Akiji looked at the clear sky in the distance and couldn't help but sigh. At this moment, his heart was filled with cold wind and heavy rain. A few days ago, the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, scolded him because of his relationship with Nico Robin. Akiji said that he was very wronged. He teamed up with Kizaru to capture Robin, but he didn't expect to meet Uchiha Madara on the way. Even if he and Kizaru joined forces, they would both be defeated and return without success. The moral degeneration of the world is getting worse day by day. Why is he only focused on teaching me a lesson, but nothing happened to that guy Borsellino? Is that guy a relative of the Gorosei? Akiji complained in his heart. However, it didn't take long for the unlucky Akiji to be favored by the goddess of luck. Rumble, not knowing how long it took, the den mushi on the desk finally rang. Akiji took off the blindfold on his eyes and looked at the familiar den mushi with a frown. Admiral Kazan, I found the trace of the Straw Hat Pirates. On the other side of the den mushi, there was an eager and ecstatic voice. Akiji's eyes were shining. He wasn't interested in the Straw Hat, but Robin's every move was tugging at his heartstrings. Their destination? Akiji asked briefly. The voice on the other side of the den mushi hesitated with some speculation. I don't know the details, but their ship is tattered and damaged. Judging from their current sailing route, I personally think it should be Water 7. Around the Marine Headquarters there were clones of White Zetsu. When Akiji rode out on his bicycle, Mariewa Dustless got the news. Master, Robin is not Akiji's opponent, she will be caught sooner or later. Hancock was worried. Her eagerness was from the bottom of her heart. She and Robin were as close as sisters. The strength of an admiral was obvious to all. Robin's hidden strength was close to the level of a quasi-admiral. She would definitely lose to Akiji. As for the Straw Hat Pirates, it's better to simply ignore them. They can't play the slightest role in a duel between admirals. The Straw Hat Pirates don't even have the qualifications to intervene. Of course, Robin is carrying my mission. He must not fall into the hands of the government. Dustless's eyes shone with a profound light. His gem-like eyes were filled with shrewdness. To deal with the Marines, Tendo Uchiha Madara can do it. As for me, I'll control them from behind. Chapter 767. Hey, it's good to play the savior game occasionally. Tendo Uchiha Madara laughed, which was also a good pastime. When Akiji was complacent, he stopped him from capturing Robin. As for the comfort of the Straw Hat Pirates, it has nothing to do with Dustless. Dustless is not a saint. It is impossible to save someone who has nothing to do with him and will be an enemy in the future. Looking up, they saw Akiji with his hands in his trouser pockets, looking indifferently at several people. His eyes swept over Luffy and others one by one and finally stopped on Robin. Someone in Alabasta should have covered for you. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for you to escape from the Marine encirclement. Akiji's eyes glowed with wisdom as he looked at Robin meaningfully. It's amazing. I didn't expect that there would be a high-level person inside the Marine. This guy who looks like a chicken is quite smart. Dustless, who was far away in Mariewa, nodded secretly. Akiji is powerful and his IQ and shrewdness are quite deep. He pays attention to benevolence and righteousness. He usually doesn't show his talents, but he is very useful at critical moments. This may be the most important thing for Sengoku. Compared with the bloodthirsty and cold Akainu, he is indeed more suitable to be a fleet admiral. The reason why Robin was able to escape from the Marine's encirclement was indeed the result of Dustless's actions, including the Straw Hat Pirates. Who the hell let you go, Nicole Robin? At the end of his words, Akiji's tone was obviously low and full of bad intentions. The air around him froze directly, and Akiji was covered with ice. I have no right to tell you this. Robin responded calmly. After following Dustless for many years, her state of mind has quietly changed. Dustless is synonymous with miracles and omnipotence. He left her with too much shock. Now facing Akiji, she is no longer the young girl she used to be. I know you won't tell me, Akiji said expressionlessly. This was what he expected. However, you also know that I am a patient person. After I catch you, I can ask slowly. So, you should come with me now, or the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, will trouble us every day. The moment his voice fell, Akiji's whole body rushed towards Robin. Rubber pistol. Luffy stretched his arm without limit and easily broke Akiji's body. However, Akiji's body just turned into ice and easily avoided Luffy's surprise attack. Don't hurt my partner or the Marine Admiral won't let you go. Luffy warned with a ferocious look on his face. His words were filled with cold killing intent. Luffy valued his companions more than his own life. If anyone wanted to capture Robin, they would have to step over his dead body first. How surprising. I didn't expect you to know me. Akiji's tone was full of surprise, and then his tone suddenly changed. His face was overflowing with coldness. But since you know the Admiral, what you should do is to run away wisely instead of foolishly resisting. That is asking for your own destruction. The cold wind came from behind and Akiji turned his head slightly. What he saw was Zoro, who was holding a katana in both hands and in his mouth. His expression was full of killing intent, and the cold light in his eyes was almost solidified. He was even more ferocious than a beast. So what if you're an admiral? This is not a reason for us to retreat. After that, 3 sharp katanas easily cut through Akiji's body. It was exactly the same as the scene when Luffy first came, and Akiji easily used elementalization to avoid it. Not only that, Zoro's whole body also changed dramatically. Whoosh! High-density ice overflowed from his body in an instant and extended rapidly along the blade. In an instant, Zoro's arm was frozen, and in the blink of an eye, his whole body was turned into an ice sculpture. It was shining under the sun. You bastard! Seeing this scene, Luffy's eyes were wide open and his face was even more ferocious. His face was distorted like a devil and he was gasping for breath. Looking at the lifeless ice sculpture, his fists were sweaty. Pure passion can't make up for the gap between strength. Your trip is over. Come with me. Looking at the murderous Luffy, Akiji suddenly touched Zoro's ice sculpture with one hand. As long as I flick it gently, his body will be shattered. You should know what this means. Take your hand away from me. Seeing that Akiji was busy talking to Luffy, Sanji took the opportunity to launch a sneak attack. His whole body rotated at high speed, throwing out a strong wind. His toes were full of high temperature, and he blasted straight towards Akiji's face. Naive. I said before that naivety can't change the gap between us. Now it seems that you didn't listen. Akiji's lazy expression flashed. He raised his right arm and aimed at Sanji's direction. Suddenly, a piercing icicle stretched out as fast as lightning and swallowed Sanji almost in the blink of an eye. The ending was the same as Zoro, he was turned into an ice sculpture. Do you see the reality, Straw Hat Luffy and Nico Robin? With his hands back in his trouser pockets again, Akiji asked with a relaxed look, as if he had done something not worth mentioning. He shrugged his stiff shoulders and there was a crackling sound of bones. He quietly said that Zoro and Sanji were not even qualified to move his body. It was just a trivial dessert before the big meal. Chapter 768. Akiji looked at Luffy calmly, his face was extremely serene, even a little lazy, and his eyes were sleepy as if he had just woken up. Blatant disdain and disdain. Don't make a scary expression. I'm not Sakazuki and I won't kill you, so come back to Impel Down with me. This way you can avoid some physical pain. Akiji is as light as a panacea, making people involuntarily feel at ease and alert, obeying him. Maybe an ordinary person would have stopped resisting. However, Manchidi, Luffy is not a trash pirate. His will has been tempered thousands of times, and it is impossible for him to be deceived by Akiji's words. Boom. Rubber's body easily penetrated Akiji, and Luffy rejected Akiji with his actions. You hurt my companions, I will not let you go. Staring at the frozen Sanji and Zoro, Luffy's eyes were firm and unshakable. They had promised to pursue their dreams together, and Luffy would never abandon his companions and go far away. Are you really a captain? It's surprising. Akiji's lazy face showed surprise, and he immediately looked at the ice sculptures of Sanji and Zoro. I thought they were both smart people and the captain they chose should also be extremely wise, but I'm sorry. I don't see any wisdom in them, they even look like a hothead. As a captain, wisdom is very important. When encountering a marine admiral, 99% of pirate captains will choose to escape. Only Luffy chose to continue fighting. Akiji can't help but shake his head at this. It's really stupid. In that case I can only solve you first. The frivolity on his face was replaced by seriousness, and Akiji's arm once again burst out of frozen ice, sharp as a knife. Even if the rubber man was stabbed, it would be unbearable. His dark eyes overflowed with cold air, and with a whoosh Akiji rushed head-on. Rubber machine gun. Countless fists hit Akiji's body, and the number of fists was as dense as a rain of bullets, and Akiji was swallowed up. Any living being that was hit by this fist would be severely injured. Inherited Hope's attack didn't have much effect. It didn't even touch Akiji's body. Akiji was safe and sound as he rushed to Luffy. Bang! His powerful right arm easily grabbed Luffy's head, and then effortlessly pressed him to the ground. Are you sober now? This is the difference between us. Hot-bloodedness is of no use. At the same time, Akiji's big hand that grabbed Luffy's head suddenly emitted cold icicles, which spread toward Luffy's whole body. Ka. Luffy was obviously not willing to admit defeat. He shook his body violently, and cracks appeared on the ice that froze his body. Carefully observing the broken ice, Akiji's expression gradually turned cold, and he lost his playful mood. An ice arm that was several times colder than before flew out quickly. Frozen moment. As Akiji's voice fell, Luffy turned into a perfect ice sculpture in the blink of an eye. The three main forces of the Straw Hat Pirates were easily defeated in less than a minute. Gulp. Usopp and Nami stared at the scene in front of them, including the ship Dr. Chopper. The eyes of the three were empty and confused. They were obviously full of confusion about the future and despair about the cruel reality in front of them. The chill in the air made them shiver. I'm coming to free you. Akiji glanced at Usopp and the other two. In the next second, countless ice layers spread under Akiji's feet and swallowed the three. They couldn't escape the fate of becoming ice sculptures. In the face of absolute strength, any resistance is useless. Now you are the only one left. Nico Robin, you are a smart person. I hope you don't do the same stupid thing. Otherwise I will also turn you into an ice sculpture. Akiji moved his sore neck and the ice on his body disappeared. I'm sorry to disappoint you. Perhaps it's because of their influence that my way of thinking has become stubborn. It's hard for me to just wait for you to capture me. Robin laughed confidently as he took off the backpack behind him. Want her to surrender to Akiji? Daydreaming. With a stiff expression, Akiji looked at Nico Robin in surprise. He didn't expect her character to become so doomed. In that case, then I can only be a good teacher and teach you a lesson. Akiji's body disappeared as if it was transparent, and there was no breath left. The gap is really too big. Behind Robin, Qingji's body condensed without anyone noticing. He sized up Robin, who was unaware of his existence, with an expressionless face. Immediately he stretched out his arm, intending to freeze Robin. However, she turned her head in a strange manner. Her fragile white fist directly punched towards Qingji. You found me? Akiji's eyes flashed with surprise. He didn't expect Robin to find his existence. His eyes immediately returned to calmness again. What can you do if you find me? You don't have armament haki. You can't hit me. The moment the fist touched Akiji, it suddenly turned black and Akiji was blown away in an instant. Chapter 769. There are no special requirements for learning armament haki, but the physical requirements are extremely strict. A thin woman like Robin has a small chance of learning it. And Robin focuses on archaeological work. She shouldn't have extra time to improve her strength, let alone learn armament haki. According to Robin's skillful skills, she should have learned it in more than 1 or 2 years. Boom. Akiji, who was caught off guard, was blown away. The fist that looked weak was filled with explosive power, forcing Akiji to retreat again and again, leaving a long and narrow ditch on the ground. The two sides were 10 or 20 meters apart. It's incredible. It was just my personal speculation before, but now it seems that my fantasy is true. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, Akiji frowned. The power of this punch was enough to threaten him, and this may not be Robin's full strength. Your captain. Pointing to Luffy, who was frozen into an ice sculpture, Akiji said, These people don't know haki, but you are an exception. My previous speculation has become a fact. You can learn armament haki. Obviously, someone taught you and your strength is not bad. Maybe it was a high-level marine who taught you. Armament haki has no age limit. If you want to explore it by yourself, it will take at least 5 or 6 years or even longer. Robin's progress is so fast that someone must be teaching her. I have no right to tell you this. Robin kept her mouth shut. The only person who taught her haki was Dustless. You are obviously the strongest among these guys. But you are willing to be an ordinary crew member. It seems that you have a hidden purpose. Akiji began to think about Robin's purpose. All of this is too abnormal. It can't be a coincidence. First of all, it is very unusual for her to use armament haki. Second, the undercover Straw Hat Pirates are even more confusing. Who taught you haki? Not only armament haki, but also Kenbun Shoko haki. Akiji, who was thinking hard, changed the topic. Just now, Robin suddenly discovered his existence. It was not a simple coincidence. It was obviously Kenbun Shoko haki. I have said no comment. Robin's tone was cold, completely different from her previous gentle self. After taking off her disguise, she was unapproachable. I know that the person who taught me how to be domineering won't do you any good. After understanding him, you'll only feel more despair. You know I never joke. I haven't seen you for a few years, but your eloquence has improved by leaps and bounds. You're completely different from the little girl who used to be submissive, Akiji said in a deep voice. His tone was obviously regretful. If he could have killed Robin or brought her directly back to the Marine headquarters, none of this would have happened today. However, staring at Robin's black fist, Akiji said disapprovingly, "It's impossible for you to defeat me with your strength. No, you might not even have the strength to protect yourself." Qingji said with a cold look in his eyes. The surrounding islands were deserted. It was an endless plain. There were almost no obstacles to avoid, and the nearby sea was frozen by Akiji. The chance of escaping was zero. With a light shake of his arms, the surrounding cold air madly condensed, and a large ice bird rapidly took shape. Ice block, stormy pheasant beak. The moment Akiji's voice fell, the ice bird took shape in an instant. It was full of vitality, and it shook its two wings vigorously. Yum! The giant ice bird let out a clear cry and flew straight into the blue sky. After circling for a while, its sharp eyes examined Robin, as if it was searching for her weakness. Then with a whoosh the giant ice bird swooped down. How can this fragile ice dregs work? Fearlessly staring at the falling ice bird, Robin's beautiful eyes burned with a burning desire to fight. The big bird opened its sharp mouth and was about to swallow Robin, but she easily dodged it. Then her fist rose from the ground and hit the ice bird. Kakaka? Numerous cracks appeared on the frozen body. At first, the cracks were only the size of a thin line, which was negligible. But because of the characteristics of ice, after only 3 seconds, it extended without limit and finally burst. It's only a so-so. With a smile on her face, Robin nodded with satisfaction. Sure enough, you're only suitable for the job. A tall black figure suddenly covered the sky, and a body of nearly 3 meters looked down at Robin. Akiji held a sharp weapon in both hands. In less than a breath, he approached Robin. Don't you understand? That's just a bait to attract your attention. The person in charge of the main attack is me. The ice spear in Akiji's hand was released and went straight to Robin. Bansho Tenshin. An irresistible gravitational force came from behind, and Robin was caught off guard and was immediately sucked in, and the ice spear followed. This is... Akiji frowned and swept in the direction of the gravitational force, and the expressionless Uchiha Madara suddenly came into his sight. It's you? His face that always maintained indifference and confidence was stiff, as if his soul was taken away. Akiji was sluggish for a few seconds before recovering his mind. Uchiha Madara was still vivid in his mind. Occasionally he would have nightmares in which the protagonist was this annoying bastard. The ice spear swept through the cold mist and slowly melted. Akiji looked straight at Madara. He knew that it was meaningless to fight in front of the man in front of him. When he joined forces with Kizaru, he was embarrassed. Challenging him alone was just asking for humiliation. Chapter 770. Seeing the appearance of Uchiha Madara, Akiji calmed down. He knew that resistance in front of Madara was futile. Akiji didn't feel any murderous intent from Madara. It was unwise to take the initiative to fight, as there was a huge difference in strength between them. Madara's emotionless eyes looked down at him indifferently. There was nothing in the world worth looking at. This man is really arrogant and overbearing. Akiji's clenched fists loosened, and his face was dignified. Once, the Marine headquarters held a special meeting about Uchiha Madara and used a lot of power to investigate his origins. However, the results made the Marine headquarters higher-ups stare at each other. This guy seemed to have appeared out of thin air. They couldn't find any information about him, and his origins were completely blank. If it wasn't for Uchiha Madara, they wouldn't have figured out what his name was. Long time no see, I didn't expect to meet you on such a desolate island, what a coincidence. A ruthless voice came out of Uchiha Madara's mouth, combined with the black iron sticks inserted in his body, he was no different from a cold-blooded robot. Coincidence. Even Akiji, who was as calm as a stone, had a slight twitch on his face. Even a 3-year-old child would know that this was a lie. They had coincidentally met on this desolate island, and then coincidentally met Robin's coincidental attack. This was nonsense. Although I don't know what the relationship between the two of them is. It seems that the person who helped Nico Robin jump out of the Marine's encirclement last time is most likely this guy, and he has the ability to do it. Akiji affirmed, all kinds of coincidences combined together, everything became true. This woman. I will protect her. Staring at Akiji's expression, even if it was hidden very cleverly, Uchiha Madara controlled by Dustless could see it clearly. Once he joined forces with Kizaru and was defeated, it was normal to have a shadow in his heart. Hearing this, Akiji's old face changed color, mixed with embarrassment. Nico Robin is an important prisoner of the world government. The Gorosei personally ordered to arrest her. You don't have to get involved in this mess for her. Akiji reminded him out of good intentions. The threat and warning in his tone were also very clear. No matter what means he used, Akiji was also forced to helplessly. The Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, repeatedly urged him to find Nico Robin. Now that the cooked duck is about to disappear again, how can he be reconciled? However, the enemy in front of him was extraordinary, and it was useless to make a move. Akiji could only use this plan to suppress Uchiha Madara with the terrifying reputation of the Gorosei, hoping that he would wisely give up and wisely return Robin. 5 Elder Stars? Unless they come in person, you can't take her away. Pointing at Nico Robin expressionlessly, Uchiha Madara's cold voice was unquestionable. Is there no room for retreat? Akiji was helpless and disappointed. This was also within his expectations. Wanting to deceive Robin with just a few words of threat was a daydream. Dustless was also a figure who had lived for more than half a century. How could he be scared by Akiji? Taking a deep look at Nico Robin, Akiji rode the bicycle again and slipped away. Every minute he spent with Uchiha Madara made him feel suffocated. Master, is it really okay to let Akiji go like this? Nico Robin asked anxiously, looking at the indifferent Uchiha Madara. Dustless, who was far away in Mariewa, just smiled lightly. Uchiha Madara said, "Do you want to kill him?" This is not the case. Asked by Dustless, Nico Robin was speechless. The impact of killing Akiji on the world was self-evident. I'm afraid that the Straw Hat Pirates will be hunted down by the Marine in the future. Killing Akiji is not good for the time being, but it will cause countless troubles. Robin won't be able to safely interpret the poneglyph in the future, and Dustless won't get what he wants. It's completely tantamount to lifting a stone to his own feet. The loss outweighs the gain. Akiji should be restrained in the future. At least he won't embarrass you by himself. Uchiha Madara's tone was very positive, and at the same time he looked at the frozen Straw Hat Pirates and couldn't help but feel sad and sympathetic for this group of guys. As for killing Akiji, there is no need to kill him now. Living people are more valuable. It's only been about 2 months at sea, but he met Marine Admiral twice, and both times the result was the same. He was overwhelmed and crushed, and the grievances in his heart can be imagined. Akiji left in disgrace. Naturally, he had to report the reason for the failure of the mission to Sengoku. After hearing the details, Sengoku didn't care about Akiji's defeat. It's not that the Marine is too incompetent, but the enemy is too strong. It's better to let that guy join the Shichibukai? Sengoku secretly decided in his heart. Akiji has been observing Sengoku, and his eyes seem to see through his thoughts. It's impossible. That guy is absolutely not interested in the Shichibukai. Akiji extinguished Sengoku's dream. The Shichibukai is like a delicious cake, but there are many people who are disdainful. For example, a powerful pirate like Uchiha Madara, a mere Shichibukai, is meaningless. Chapter 771. Akiji extinguished Sengoku's dream. Shichibukai is like a delicious cake, but there are many people who are disdainful. For example, Uchiha Madara is a powerful pirate. It doesn't make sense for a Shichibukai to tempt him. Maybe he will be humiliated. This is a bad year. The more powerful the enemy is, the more likely it is to be the enemy of justice. Roger, including Whitebeard, who is powerful enough to shake the world, are the enemies of the Marine. Sengoku said with a tone full of strong unwillingness. Sengoku's low roar contained a struggle. With a bang, he slammed his hands on the desk to vent all kinds of negative emotions in his heart. It seems that only by doing this can Sengoku's devastated heart feel better. Oh. D-like enemies always seem to be on the opposite side of the marine. Nico Robin is very important. We can't turn a blind eye to it. When it comes to the bottom line, the marine must not back down. Sengoku's face glowed with dazzling brilliance and he said decisively, "We really shouldn't back down." Akiji also nodded and agreed with Sengoku's idea. It's not that the marine is stingy. If Nico Robin is really a pawn, the marine will let it go, but she is the only person in the world who has solved the poneglyph. The most fatal thing is that it also contains the whereabouts of ancient weapons. Sengoku certainly can't be indifferent. I have ordered the CP9 lurking in Water 7 to wait for the right opportunity to capture Nico Robin. Akiji's tone was full of determination. And I have given the golden Den Mushi to Spandam. Once something unexpected happens, it will immediately launch the Demon Slayer order. Contrary to the middle-aged uncle who always had a warm smile on his face, at this moment, Akiji has a new style of his admiral. Sengoku raised his eyebrows slightly and looked at Akiji in surprise. He obviously read the meaning of caution in Akiji's eyes. Nico Robin is just a little girl with no strength. The original bounty of 81 million berries is not worthy of the name. When Nico Robin was less than 10 years old, the bounty of 81 million berries was not because of her strength, but because of her particularity. After all, she was the only human in the world who could decipher the poneglyph. I'm sorry to disappoint you, Fleet Admiral. I have to remind you that was before. Hearing this, Akiji suddenly smiled and subconsciously touched his slightly red and swollen left face. He could still feel a tingling pain left by Nico Robin. Nico Robin is not what she used to be. The CP9 is her opponent. I hope they will not be annihilated. But, hearing Akiji's complicated sigh, Sengoku was slightly stunned. He immediately stared at the red and swollen face of Akiji and understood what he meant. On an unknown island, Uchiha Madara had already left, leaving only Nico Robin here. Her next job was to wait for these ice sculptures to melt. Of him. But compared, Yudo Uis to suddenly appeared. Ants to him. Was to be. As to be. Of to. And to. Tut. Robin looked at the Straw Hat Pirates. To some extent they were too ignorant. They didn't even know the strength of an admiral. The Straw Hat Pirates want to shake the admiral with their current strength? They're overestimating themselves. That's a scene where the Straw Hat Pirates are overestimating themselves. As time passed, the cloudless Mary Geos gradually dimmed, and the fiery red sunset hung in the distant sky. It was beautiful, and under the gorgeous halo, the whole Mary Geos was peaceful and quiet. Even the Tenryubito, who liked to torture and kill slaves, gave face to Dustless. Seeing the appearance of Dustless, they all hid at home and slept. This group of guys is really timid. Yuki, who was sitting on Dustless's broad left shoulder, said with deep disdain and contempt in her words. Incompetent idiots only know how to bully slaves. Dustless and his family walked peacefully. As the sun gradually set, 3 figures stretched infinitely. Looking at them, the charming woman leaning on Dustless's right shoulder was Kagaya. After not seeing little Yushi for a while, Huiji also missed her. However, this little girl was playful and stayed by Wu Chen's side, refusing to return to the system world. Wu Chen had no choice but to bring Huiji out of the system world. What a sin. Dustless sighed. This little girl was the natural enemy of the Tenryubito. She often suppressed and bullied the Tenryubito. Because of the powerful existence of Dustless, the Tenryubito could only swallow their anger. It's a waste of your talent if I don't offend them. It's because of this young lady's recklessness that you can better reflect your strength and deterrence. Yushi glared discontentedly at Wu Chen and said confidently. Yuki, come here. Kagaya's charming eyes were like silk, and the beating light was gentle like water. Yuki fell into Kagaya's arms obediently and rubbed comfortably like a kitten. It's much more comfortable than smelly father. Yuki enjoyed it and arched her head, squinting her crescent moon, and her face was intoxicated. Dustless's mouth twitched fiercely, and he looked at Kagaya with hopeful eyes. He expected her to teach Yuki a lesson, but her words directly made Dustless vomit blood. What you said just now is right. A mere Tenryubito is insignificant. Do what you should do, don't worry about them. Chapter 772. Dustless's old face turned green. He originally hoped that Huiji would teach this little girl a lesson, but now it seemed that it was unrealistic. Especially Huiji's actions, it was obvious that she was instigating little Yueshi to find trouble with the celestial dragons. Forget it, let's just go with the flow. The helplessness hanging on his face disappeared with the wind. Just like what Huiji said, a mere celestial dragons didn't need to care. Holding Huiji's soft waist, Dustless leisurely strolled. The elegant body fragrance full of endless charm hit his face. Dustless's expression flashed a strange color, and his hands became restless. You? Huiji stared at Dustless angrily. This guy was so bold in broad daylight. She intended to stop Dustless's action. Thinking of little Yueshi in her arms, her face turned red, and a trace of anger flashed in her eyes. This despicable guy is looting a burning house, shameless. Huiji scolded secretly. She also ignored the big hands that were pinching and touching inside her lapel. Hee. Glancing at Huiji from the corner of his eyes, Dustless's face was as usual, and he directly ignored her. His pair of extremely skilled hands were unscrupulous. How has Yueshi been recently? Her delicate thin lips fell on Yueshi's face, pointing to Dustless with a wretched smile and said softly, "Your father shouldn't have bullied you? If he bullied you, you must remember to tell mother." Little Yueshi nodded her head like a chicken pecking rice, and immediately her deep shining eyes looked at Dustless playfully. She seemed to be thinking about how to arrange Dustless's story. "I warn you, don't talk nonsense." Dustless's mouth twitched fiercely and he said with a straight face. Little Yueshi smiled maliciously. Her slender fingers touched her white and tender chin, and she looked like she was thinking about how to frame Dustless. When Dustless saw this, his old face darkened and he glared at Yushi. "If you dare to talk nonsense, I'll tear your mouth off." Yushi just made a face and looked at Dustless with disdain. This kind of senseless threat, he usually didn't use it. You're like a child who can't be found. In any case, you've lived for more than half a century, yet you're still so childish. Puchi. With a beautiful smile on her face, Huiji scratched Yushi's nose and carefully looked at Dustless, who was about to go berserk. This was the first time she saw him so helpless. That helpless expression of wanting to beat him up was especially interesting in Hui's eyes. Since the moment he had met Dustless, it had been almost 14 or 15 years. This was the first time he had met Dustless with such an expression. A gust of cold wind swept over. Dustless looked up at the gradually darkening night and whispered, "It's time to take off. It seems that it's getting late, it's time to go back." Huiji also nodded slightly, but little Yueshi was dissatisfied and tossed around. Her protesting eyes were stared back by Dustless's ferocious eyes. The unwilling little girl had to lie in Huiji's arms with a pout. Her eyes flickered as if she was thinking about what bad things to tell Dustless, which made Dustless speechless. He couldn't help but guess who she inherited this weird personality from. In a gorgeous villa decorated with crystals, Hancock had prepared a sumptuous dinner in advance, waiting for the arrival of Dustless and others. The dazzling array of food was dazzling. The tempting fragrance aroused the worms in the stomach. Little Yueshi directly jumped out of Huiji's arms, regardless of the occasion, and began to wolf down the food without caring about her image. Seeing this scene, Huiji glanced at Dustless with dissatisfaction, and her voice was obviously full of blame. "This ridiculous image must be inherited from you." Huiji was a princess in ancient times. She had been influenced by good cultural etiquette since she was young, so she was dignified and beautiful, and her every move was very polite. Of course, it was an accident during the battle. Dustless heard this and rolled his eyes, staring at Huiji's jade-like face, and also sat casually at the dining table. "Since you are so dignified and beautiful, then wait." After that, Dustless also began to wolf down the food. Little Yueshi and he ignored Huiji at the same time. This father and daughter were surprisingly similar in tacit understanding. Huiji shook her head helplessly and also sat next to Dustless. She elegantly picked up the bowl and chopsticks in her hand. When she was about to pick up the food, Dustless's voice sounded. "You ancient people are all so respectful to your teachers like you?" Dustless asked curiously. Even if she accepted the influence of modern culture, Huiji would sometimes show her stubborn character, and there was a sense of being inflexible. "That's for sure." Huiji glanced at Dustless and put the fragrant food into her mouth. After chewing slowly, she said softly, "Some things can't be violated." "Indeed, some things can't be violated and can't be changed," Dustless echoed, with a malicious smile on his mouth. Suddenly, he leaned over to Huiji's ear and blew a hot breath. Ancient people pay attention to the 3 obedience and 4 virtues. It is a wife's duty to serve her husband. Tonight you have to do whatever I want you to do. Dustless said with a smile, revealing his purpose. Huiji's face turned red, and she glared at Dustless unkindly. She already felt that this guy was up to no good. It was exactly as she had guessed, and it was such a despicable Dustless condition. Dream on. I will do whatever you want me to do. What kind of joke is this? Dustless just looked at Huiji indifferently, and one sentence made her swallow blood in anger. Your protest is invalid. As an ancient person you should abide by the 3 obedience and 4 virtues. This is the rule. Chapter 773. Dazed, Huey looked at Dustless in astonishment. She didn't expect this guy to be so shameless and cunning, deliberately luring her into a trap and letting Dustless take advantage of the loophole. It's okay to stick to the rules, but you have to serve me well tonight. This is your responsibility. Dustless said with a cheeky smile close to Huey's ear. With a wretched smile and a wolfish light, Dustless has long been hungry. Without Yushi, this third wheel, he would have already done Huey on the spot. The sky as the cover and the earth as the bed, this is the best. Huey snorted and simply chose to ignore the existence of Dustless. She elegantly ate the dishes as if nothing had happened. The blush on her perfect face couldn't be wiped away. Late at night, the bright moon hung high and everything was quiet. Dustless sneaked into Huey's room. He thought he could indulge himself, but he didn't expect little Yushi to guard Huey like a knight, causing Dustless to feel stifled. The next morning, Dustless's eyes were dark, no different from a drug addict for many years. Father's physique is stronger than mother, why do you look so listless? Yushi's clear eyes narrowed into crescents as she asked curiously. Hearing this, Huey smiled. Her smile was as gentle as a spring breeze. Wiping Yushi's face with a wet towel, she revealed a faint smile. Although these trivial matters can be done by using servants, Huey, who loves Yushi too much, still chose to do it herself. Is father not feeling well, mother? Looking at Huey in puzzlement, Yushi felt that Huey's smile had a different meaning. Don't worry about him, he's just distressed. I'm afraid he was suffocated last night. Patting Yushi's head, Huey said with a smile. She was afraid that Dustless couldn't hear her, so she deliberately stretched her voice and looked very proud. So that's how it is, in order to guard against me, she deliberately pulled Yushi to sleep with her yesterday. The confusion in his eyes disappeared. Dustless instantly understood Huey's meaning. Okay, let's go eat breakfast. Her thin lips gently kissed Yushi's face. Huey's smile was beautiful. For this daughter of hers, she liked no one could let Yushi be wronged. Therefore Yushi's arrogance increased. She was the only one in everything, exceptionally overbearing. Little Yushi nodded her head, then skipped happily and disappeared into the dark corridor. I didn't expect you to be so despicable. As if he couldn't stand the glare, Dustless closed the curtains, turned and said to Huey, people like me, I hate to lose, there's no such an annoying word in the dictionary. Hearing this, Huey pursed her lips and smiled, her eyes filled with indescribable disdain. You're really stubborn. Unfortunately, you've already lost. This is an undeniable fact. No, you're wrong. Last night was only a temporary victory. There is still the second half of the finals. His S's, S2 Hearing this unfamiliar term for the first time, Huey's face froze. She didn't understand what it meant. After a long silence, Huey no longer thought about it and changed the topic. Yushi is a good method to guard against wolves. Sleep with her in the future. Method to guard against wolves? Dustless's heart was rolling, and his old blood almost burst out uncontrollably. When did he become a wolf? After a moment of hesitation, Dustless stared at Huey. His eyes were filled with desire. It's okay to be a wolf. Anyway, I'm about to turn into a wolf. Since you know that Yushi is a method to guard against wolves, you shouldn't let her go. Dustless had a teasing smile on his face. I now announce the start of the second half of the competition. The moment his voice fell, Dustless disappeared without a trace. Only Huey was left in the room. Her eyes were a little dim and her movements were stiff. She didn't realize what had happened. This jutsu? Huey's voice suddenly stopped. A strong and powerful arm hugged her from behind. She felt a hot man's breath, and her face was as red as a ripe apple. She finally understood the meaning of the second half of the competition. It's still daytime. Huey struggled hard and tried to push away Dustless's arm, but it didn't work. She, the god of creation of the ninja world, was not Dustless's opponent at all. So what if it's daytime? I just closed the curtains. Her pair of small hands became restless as she smiled and said, "Since you know that wuxia is an effective method to guard against perverts, then you should not leave her. Now, not only did you leave her, you even provoked me even more. Family law awaits." Yui's face was stunned. She didn't expect Dustless to be so shameless that he would do such a thing in the daytime. "Are you dumbfounded? This is the result of offending me. Don't expect me to care about the so-called occasion, that's self-deceiving." When his voice fell, Dustless violently blocked Huey's thin lips. Because it was the living room, there was no sex, so Dustless could only wrongly hug Huey. With a body comparable to the Jubi, Dustless's energy was infinite. He just needed to stand, everything else was superfluous. Time flew and unknowingly 3 days had passed. In the dark, mysterious space, there was a shrill mouse cry from time to time. The air was cold and filled with a fishy smell. "Ace, long time no see," a mysterious voice resounded in the dark space. It spread out like ripples in water, spreading to every corner. Suddenly, a pair of bright eyes flashed in the depths of the dark space. It was none other than Fire Fist who had been imprisoned here. Chapter 774. 3 figures walked in the dark space, of which the figure on the left was the most conspicuous, wearing a white cloak and a beige striped coat, and his tall body was nearly 3 meters tall. Sengoku is really impatient. He has been fighting with Whitebeard all his life. He is an old friend. It's really cold to want Whitebeard's life so much. In the dark space, Dustless's voice came. Looking around, Dustless, Kizaru, and Akiji were all there. Today, Fire Fist Ace's wounds have healed, but his spirit is abnormally sluggish and decadent, and his temperament is terminally ill, like an old man in his twilight years. There is no other way. Whitebeard's blood must end the last era. They have become a thing of the past. Kizaru leisurely blew smoke rings and stared at Ace, who was locked by sea stone in front of him. His old eyes flashed with pity as the entire Whitebeard pirates may die because of him. It's surprisingly low. Several people walked to the side of the prison cell, and Akiji looked down at Ace sitting on the ground. At this moment, his head drooped and he was listless. His inner soul was deprived and he was just a walking corpse. If you knew this, why did you do it? Unfortunately, there is no regret medicine in this world, and it's useless to change. The remaining sympathy in his eyes turned into indifference, and Akiji opened the door of the cell himself. Dustless and others walked in front of Ace and looked at him with different expressions. His feelings are pitiful, but his crimes are unforgivable. 3 admirals came at once. "I didn't expect a prisoner like me to be so valuable." Looking up and looking at the indifferent expressions of Dustless and others, Fire Fist Ace laughed at himself. "Don't get me wrong, I'm just accompanying them to release you from prison. Of course, I'm not letting you go free but escorting you to a more airtight place." "Impel down," Dustless said. Kizaru stepped forward, pinched out the cigarette in his hand, put his hands in his trouser pockets and said in a lazy tone, "Don't look down on yourself so much. You are an important person in the Whitebeard pirates. Mariewa is not far from Impel down. The possibility of Whitebeard ambushing you halfway is very high." Hearing this, Fire Fist Ace's expression became more gloomy, but Kizaru didn't care and continued, "So, Fleet Admiral sent me and Kazan. After all, the opponent is the Whitebeard pirates. They are all terrible hunters. If we are careless, we may capsize." But then Kizaru's tone suddenly changed and his face that was as rough as dead bark sneered. Often the position of the hunter and the prey changes rapidly, and the hunter suddenly becomes the prey from time to time. "You plan to imprison me and Impel down?" Hearing that he was going to be locked and Impel down, Ace's lifeless eyes glowed with a strong light, and his face was filled with unconcealable joy. "Don't get me wrong," Wu Qin said. His expression was frozen, exactly like a dead person. "I transferred you to Impel down in the hope that you can have a better environment. At the very least, I want you to be white and plump so that you won't look like a human or a ghost like this." Ruthlessly stepping Fire Fist Ace into the 18th layer of hell, Dustless's mouth squirmed, and there was no sign of peace. He continued to indifferently attack. "You must be alive and kicking. A stinky fish that is about to die of disease can't attract the ferocious Sea King. It seems that we still have to execute him together." Fire Fist Ace's face was ashen when he heard this and his eyes suddenly turned black. He felt that his future was dark and desperate, and the whole world had ruthlessly abandoned him. Marine's plan to publicly execute him has not changed, and they still intend to use him to attract the Whitebeard pirates. This is natural, you are such a perfect bait, Sengoku will certainly not let you go in vain. Pirate King Roger's son, Whitebeard's adopted son, it's a pity not to use you. Dustless said. Ace's face changed greatly and a blood-red light appeared in his eyes, like a cat whose tail was stepped on. He roared like crazy, my father has only one person from beginning to end, Whitebeard. Ignorant, it is because you are Whitebeard's son that we use you at all costs. Kizaru sneered. Snap. Dustless suddenly snapped his fingers and several black-clothed men came out from behind him, holding a rich dinner in their hands, and the fragrance made people's mouths twitch. Compared to Sengoku, I am a lot kinder. I have prepared a last dinner for you. In a dark place like Impel Down, it is impossible to get this kind of treatment. Dustless said with a generous face. However, Fire Fist Ace was just full of disdain and did not appreciate it. Last dinner? I feel like this is hush money. Fire Fist Ace suddenly said in a baffling manner. His entire face was filled with a sneer. Hush money? Kizaru and Akiji looked at each other and looked at Fire Fist Ace with a puzzled expression. They didn't know what he meant by those words. The last dinner is obviously just to shut me up, afraid that I will retaliate against you after I go to heaven. Dustless looked at Fire Fist Ace contemptuously, and his words were full of ridicule. You sinful people can't go to heaven, you can only go to hell, and you can't become an angel, you can only become a ghost. Looking down at Fire Fist Ace, Dustless's eyes were full of contempt. If you think you can go to heaven and retaliate against me by becoming a ghost, you can try. I should be looking forward to it. Chapter 775. Dustless looked at Ace with a funny look. This guy even wants to go to heaven. Especially listening to his tone, it seems that even in the world after death, he won't easily bypass the marine. How naive are you, Fire Fist? Kizaru's lazy voice sounded. He always felt that Kizaru was mentally abnormal. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to say such crazy words. The Whitebeard pirates are all sinful people. The stronger they are, the more blood debt they bear. If such a person can go to heaven, Kizaru feels that he can be an angel. Untie him. Akiji ordered silently. Fire Fist Ace was tied up with thick chains that were even thicker than a human's leg. Are you guys trying to use me to lure Dad? Ace said in despair, his eyes ashen. You've asked this question before. Frowning, Dustless always felt that Fire Fist Ace's words had a different meaning, but since you asked, seeing that you are about to step into the underworld, this is indeed a trap to attract the Whitebeard pirate. No, it's not just to attract Whitebeard. At this moment, Dustless's voice spread out, brushing every inch of the dark space. This public execution of the people who participated in saving you, I'm afraid that they will be affected. Dustless said with a cold smile. He wanted to see Ace's firm will to be defeated. Akiji looked at the two helplessly. The abilities of the devil fruit are not only surprisingly similar, but sometimes in terms of character they also like to attack others. This is your last dinner, enjoy it. Akiji's heart was as calm as water as he looked down at Fire Fist Ace. Although his experience was worthy of sympathy, he couldn't absolve Fire Fist Ace of his guilt. In the eyes of the Marine, pirates are not worthy of sympathy. Dustless's assistant placed the steaming hot plate in front of Fire Fist Ace and then silently retreated. Open his sea stone handcuffs. Staring at Fire Fist Ace with sea stone in his hands, Akiji ordered. Akiji didn't care about this. Dustless, Kizaru, and him were three admirals. Fire Fist Ace couldn't escape. If he wanted to resist, he would be cruelly suppressed. It wouldn't have any effect. Instead, it would increase unnecessary injuries. Dustless and Kizaru both remained silent as if nothing had happened. Fire Fist Ace was not worthy of their attention. Crack. The heavy sea stone handcuffs fell to the ground in the corner. Fire Fist Ace stood up and moved his stiff body. He stared at the knife beside the plate, and a strange luster flashed in his eyes. If you want to escape, forget it. You can't deal with three admirals at the same time. Dustless said as he keenly captured the luster in Ace's eyes. Come with us, I hope we don't have to do it ourselves. Kizaru said. At least wait until I eat something to replenish my strength. If I'm hungry, you Marines will be in trouble. Fire Fist Ace revealed a bold and carefree smile. Then he began to wolf down the fragrant feast with both hands. Like a reincarnated hungry ghost, he finished the dazzling array of food in one gulp in a short period of time. Bring it to me. At this moment, a loud roar resounded through the darkness. Then he rushed to the side of the previous assistant and easily dodged the knife in the other's hand. Immediately, he flashed back for a distance, guarding against Dustless and others. I knew this would happen. It's impossible to make this kid give up. Kizaru sighed and looked as usual. He wasn't surprised. On the contrary, all this was expected. Kizaru didn't expect Fire Fist Ace to go to impel down with them. Are you going to use this broken blade to deal with us? Dustless leaned back against the iron fence. The long knife in Ace's hand was easy to deal with ordinary humans, but against a Marine Admiral, it would be broken in an instant. You're wrong. Don't say 3, I'm not your opponent at present. Fire Fist Ace shook his head resolutely. Dustless and others, each of them is strong beyond the scope of human knowledge. It is impossible for him to defeat an admiral with his current strength. Is it? Staring thoughtfully at the knife in Fire Fist Ace's hand, Dustless and others looked at each other and understood his intentions. He didn't choose to fight, but another kind of relief. Kill yourself to thank them. Only with Fire Fist Ace's death would Whitebeard be able to realize that everything would be salvaged. Why do you always have this ridiculous fantasy? It only makes you more powerless. Ace, do you think suicide can solve everything? Dream on. Dustless sneered. Akiji and Kizaru frowned. Although they were very close to Fire Fist Ace, they were half a beat late. This kid may really succeed in committing suicide. Don't forget, your life and death have nothing to do with me when you get out of here, but now you are still in Martialworld. If I let you die, you can die. If I let you live, you must live. As a prisoner, you have no choice. Chapter 776. Don't forget, your life and death has nothing to do with me when you get out of here, but now you are still in Martialworld. If I let you die, you can die. If I let you live, you must live. You have no choice as a prisoner. The sonorous and powerful voice fell into everyone's ears. Akiji and Kizaru were stunned, their eyes were a little dazed and their eyebrows were slightly raised, and their eyes were full of disapproval and doubt. Such a short distance is not enough to stop Fire Fist Ace. If he is determined to commit suicide, Akiji and Kizaru can only stand and watch. Even with Kizaru's speed, he can't do it. He can arrive in front of Fire Fist Ace in an instant, but he can't stop him. Do you really think I don't dare? Fire Fist Ace's eyes flashed with anger. It is the nature of pirates to be straightforward. They will never hide their feelings. Therefore most pirates are reckless. Although Fire Fist Ace has some wisdom, his pirate nature has never changed, and it has been deeply ingrained in his bones. You little brat. Your brain doesn't seem to work well, your reaction is unexpectedly slow. Dustless still stood on the ground, his eyes always remained calm and his temperament was elegant and calm. I told you before that this is Martialworld. I don't mind if you die, but without my approval, if you die, where will I put my face? You can die, but you must leave Martialworld. For example, die on their ship. Dustless pointed to Akiji and Kizaru, with an expression that had nothing to do with him, and said softly, in short, I don't care where you die, but I promised Sengoku that I would never let you die in Martialworld. Hearing this, Akiji and Kizaru looked at each other and could catch the speechlessness in each other's eyes. What does he mean by dying on our ship? This is too irresponsible. Stupid. Dustless's eyes were full of pity. He said contemptuously, even if you really die here now, the government will not let Whitebeard go casually. This is not an accident, but an inevitability caused by various reasons. Don't be naive. Marine's battle power has expanded at an unprecedented rate, while the Whitebeard pirates are slowly weakening, and because of Whitebeard's problem, the entire pirates are at a dead end. At present, there is no one in the Whitebeard pirates who can replace the former Whitebeard. Attacking the Whitebeard pirates is something that cannot be changed. Shut up, you bastard. Musket. Flames shot out from his fingers like bullets fired from a machine gun. They engulfed Dustless in an instant, but did not harm his body. The current Fire Fist Ace was abnormally strong in the eyes of the world, but in front of Dustless, this cheat, he was abnormally weak. Without even looking at Fire Fist Ace, Dustless's body simply glowed, and he easily dodged the incoming bullets. Elemental transformation was completely immune to these ordinary physical attacks. Are you angry? Yes, the Whitebeard pirates are about to die and I can only watch. No, it may even be the fuse that destroys the Whitebeard pirates. If it was me, I would hate myself for being incompetent. Dustless said with a look of understanding. Goodbye, Oyaji. Looking at the sharp tachi in his hand, Ace's face flashed a decisive color, and he cut straight towards his neck. It looked like he wanted to separate his own body. His method was extremely bloody and violent. He was extremely bloodthirsty to the enemy, and even more ruthless to himself. He thought that he could completely disappear from life and death, but a sudden change occurred. "Idiot, I said that you can only die if I want you to." His pupils twisted rapidly, sending out amazing eye power fluctuations. Dustless disappeared for a while. In the dark space, his whole person disappeared out of thin air, as if he had never appeared, and peace was restored again. Fire Fist Ace suddenly opened his eyes and shot a strange light. Just now, it seemed that there was an inexplicable distortion that swallowed the tachi in his hand. Impossible? It's really gone? Looking at his empty right arm, Fire Fist Ace's face was filled with shock. A figure still descended from the sky. His dark black hair was messy, and his eyes had remained cold and indifferent from the beginning. There was no doubt that it was Dustless. Dustless's calf that contained a powerful force was close to Ace's right shoulder, and the unexpected huge force made Ace's expression change greatly. He wanted to struggle to avoid, but he was suppressed by the iron blood, and was easily stepped into the ground by Dustless. The ground couldn't withstand this powerful force and burst open. "Are you awake now, Fire Fist?" Dustless looked down at the sluggish Fire Fist Ace and asked, as if he had done something insignificant. His voice was light and full of magnetism. A small character like Fire Fist Ace was not worthy of being surprised. "How did you get here?" Fire Fist Ace roared in disbelief. Putting aside the fact that the tachi in his hand had disappeared, Dustless had also inexplicably descended from the sky and easily subdued Fire Fist Ace, who was completely unaware of it. "This is called space ninjutsu." Dustless glanced at Fire Fist Ace and said bluntly, "The name of this jutsu is Heavenly Hand Force. Within a certain distance you can change your position with an object. Just now I swapped the tachi in your hand." Pointing at the tachi in Fire Fist Ace's hand, it appeared where Dustless was standing just now. Chapter 777. The strangeness of ninjutsu is beyond imagination, including all things. Fire Fist Ace, including Kizaru and Akiji, looked at Dustless, who suddenly appeared with a stunned face. Coming and going without a trace, it is impossible to detect. The so-called observation haki does not work at all. "I just used observation haki, but I didn't realize his existence." Akiji frowned slightly. After Dustless's body disappeared, he began to use observation haki to perceive the movements around him, but Dustless was like a ghost without a body, completely shielding the perception of observation haki. "Space ninjutsu?" Kizaru heard the words and immediately guessed the meaning of the words. Maybe it's the ability to move through space, and only in this way can he avoid the perception of observation haki. Akiji heard this and nodded. Only space movement can avoid the perception of observation haki. Apart from that, there are no other tricks known at present. Picking up the chain and the sea stone handcuffs on the ground again, Akiji found Fire Fist Ace again and looked at the decadent Ace. His eyes flashed with indifference. "Since you are so insensible, I can only put the chain on you again." After that, Akiji skillfully tied Fire Fist Ace and locked him up again like a dumpling, and his hands were once again put on the sea stone handcuffs. He hoped that this kid would be sensible. Who would have thought that he would not change his nature? The road was his own choice and he had to pay the price for it. Fire Fist Ace looked at the chains all over his body, and his face was ashen, especially the sea stone handcuffs on his hands, which were as terrifying as a secret black hole in the universe, swallowing all his strength. Not to mention using the power of the devil fruit again, the strength of his whole body seemed to be swallowed up and annihilated, revealing the powerlessness deep into his bone marrow. "Let's go. You two send Fire Fist to impel down. I can't leave, so I won't accompany you." Stretching out, Dustless had an expression of, "I'm busy and have no time." Akiji and Kizaru looked at each other and could see the envy in each other's eyes. Dustless is the first Marine Admiral in history. Almost any task is done casually, and whether to do it or not depends on his mood. On the shore of Mariewa port, Dustless sent Akiji and Kizaru here. Fire Fist Ace, whose body was bound by all kinds of iron chains, followed closely behind. His expression was dispirited and powerless, and his eyes were blank. He was full of uncertainty about the future. The blood flowing in his body had been sucked out, and he was as thin as a matchstick, leaving only skin and bones. However, people in their 20s were more like candles in the wind. Their entire bodies were filled with indescribable dispiritedness and listlessness. They had lost the motivation to live on, and they were no different from zombies. To the current Fire Fist Ace, living was more painful and terrifying than death. If I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have done it in the first place. I would have taken a step forward and taken back my words. Dustless let out a long sigh. He stared into Ace's eyes and could clearly see regret. But what could he do? You have to pay the price for everything you do. There is no path of regret. When will Sengoku execute Fire Fist? Dustless, Akiji and Kizaru, who were chatting with Akiji and Kizaru, interrupted and asked. This? Akiji's eyes flashed with hesitation, and then he recalled the current situation of the Marine headquarters. He couldn't help but shake his head. At least they can't execute Fire Fist Ace now. Everything is not ready yet, and it will take a lot of time to perfect the defense of the Marine headquarters. The other party is one of the Yonko, 4 emperors. Whitebeard, the strongest man in the world. Arrogance will only lead to self-destruction. Akiji's face was dignified. And Whitebeard has a lot of wings, and there must be a lot of pirates helping him in the new world. The place of execution is the location of the Marine headquarters, Marin. The underground defense mechanisms will be replaced during this period, and the residents of Marin will be evacuated. Kizaru took a puff of smoke and his eyes were shining. This time the fleet admiral is going all out, and he intends to completely annihilate the Whitebeard pirates. Sengoku will definitely not let go of a dying tiger. It has been his dream for many years to annihilate the Whitebeard pirates. Dustless heard this and nodded without a trace. Judging from the current situation, it is indeed not suitable to execute Ace. Marines' preparation has not been fully done. Now Marines from all over the world have not been summoned, and Shichibukai are also on their own. Speaking of which, Blackbeard's whereabouts have been very strange recently. Akiji changed the thread of discussion and suddenly went straight down with a little fear vaguely. Sengoku ordered Akiji to secretly observe Blackbeard's every move, and no sign of him could escape Akiji's eyes. Impel down? Dustless was stunned when he heard the words, and then he asked tentatively. Looking at Dustless in surprise, Akiji gently nodded and said, "He is indeed paying attention to impel down. His purpose is unknown. Among the Shichibukai, only his whereabouts are the most strange." Dustless smiled mysteriously and then walked leisurely into Mariewa. Blackbeard. His strength is rising now and his courage is also getting bigger and bigger. It seems that he can't wait to attack impel down. Dustless walked straight ahead with a sneer on the corner of his mouth. About 10 years ago he had tamed Shilyu of the Rain. This time he just let him lurk in the Blackbeard pirates. You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.